Getting through that? Yeah, not overly.
Right, so we will start as which should be on the screen. Whakatakateho ki te tū, whakatakateho ki te tonga, kia mā hina kuta, kia mā tara whikai, e hira ke ana te atakura, e tio he ruka, te hau, ti hei Māori. Welcome along, everybody. Good to have a good crowd along today. First item on the agenda is apologies, and we've got one from Pauline for lateness. Second of that. Yep. Sunita, we'll put that motion. All those in favour? Right, that is carried. And John is online. He is here in that capacity. Declarations of interest. Anyone have anything to declare? Nope. Item 3, confirmation of previous minutes. We'll do a mover and a seconder.
Move it.
Ali, Emma's seconded. We'll put that motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
That is carried. That takes us to our public forum for today. As I said, we've got a number of people to speak, so we will be sticking to a 5-minute time limit today. Reese Lewis not here,
but I'm looking an eye.
We'll come back to him. That's confused. Yeah.
Where do you want to stand?
So if you come to the table, just sit there. And so you've got 5 minutes, and that includes time for questions.
Cool. Kia ora koutou. College Councillor McLennan.
Wish you didn't hold on.
That's right. Feelings were mutual. Simon, I think we've had some stuff in the past.
Absolutely.
So nice to see you. Kelly, you come with some marketing for the opening of the new school. So just acknowledge that. I don't know if that conference is just. But thanks for having us here today. We've set up a new school called Christchurch North College in the Burnside Business Park, and it's a school for mainly around for disengaged students, neurodiverse. Acknowledged as a charter school, and people will have various opinions on that. I'm not here to debate that today. We started for a roll of 15 students, expanding out to 30 by the end of this year, and we're expanding up into the upstairs part of our building, another 30 students into next year. I'll pass over to Khan to introduce himself as well.
Yeah, kia ora, my name's Khan. I am the community liaison for Christchurch North College, and I also do a bit of attendance in pastoral care as well. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're working with kids, as I said, who are neurodiverse students who have been turning up at school. Our formation of our charter school charitable trust. So we originally were a company, but we've moved over to charitable trust status. Without going into too deeply about charter schools, there's a lot of setup costs associated with any school, and obviously we have to pay rent, unlike state schools, so to speak. So that's that we have. So any impending newspaper articles, etc., around charter schools being wealthy is a bit of a misnomer, in my opinion. And the fact that we will actually need funding to actually support some of these kids as they go through their schooling journey. Because although we set up originally as a year 7-10 school, we've actually got 2 year 11 kids who are doing the NCA programs through us. We hope to extend even through to year 12. And as we know, in a city of this size, we certainly need more schools like this. We've put an application in for another campus in another part of Christchurch, because obviously there is a demand there for that, whether we get success with opening that campus. But we certainly, on a weekly basis, have people knocking our door, a waiting list of 21 and counting, and the need for these types of things in Christchurch, and getting visitors from other parts of the country who obviously want to roll out the model that we've developed here. So by the community getting beside us, and this area as part of our community in terms of a zoning is really, really important for these kids from who you represent, the parents of, etc., moving forward as well.
Cool. So with the funding we do get, we pride ourselves in creating a barrier-free approach for these whānau. As we know, it's quite tough out there for some. So we remove the cost of uniform, stationery, and then we've connected with the local Full Bellies who help support and provide lunches for our students and whānau. Also, as you can imagine, we have some students who have had history of very low attendance from as little as 8% attendance for the entire year. Actually further than that, with one young man who has only done a total of 3 periods over his last year of school. Now he is sitting with us around 60 to 70%. So he's already made a significant improvement on that.
What age is he?
He is a year and a half, so he's 15. Yeah. So these are some of the issues we are working together in hopes and currently with our local communities to support these students and these whānau to improve those issues that are out there today.
We could go on all day, but I know there's 1 minute, 10 seconds to go. So we're happy to field any questions, and I hope from this group I'll get some.
Quick one from me, and then I'll come to Ellie. What can we as a community board do to support you?
But it would be around, like, if we want to do applications for various things that individual students and their parents could approach and attach them to some of the funds that I know are available. I forget off the top of my head what some of the names of those are, but if we could have those sort of sent to us, and then we could like attach individual kids to that for a start. It's just picking off the little bits and pieces along the way that we really could make a difference to the kids in these schools and keep them in education, most importantly, so they're going to contribute to society later on. Cool.
Up there, Ellie.
I just had a good, nice to meet you, Justin. I thought we've only ever talked on the phone. I just wanted to ask about where the kids go after they've been with you. So what's the support beyond?
Yeah, so it can also be a passing through option. So we've had a student this year who was in a school further away, but is in zone, and then is now going to transition to her local high school that's moved to. So 2 terms with us, that could be a success criteria. So we've got not only her attendance back up and running, successes that we're positioning ourselves as a mainstream school for special character, not an old ed provider. So we can then get that student moving back into a bigger mainstream. So that's a success criteria for us. So we got the attendance up, back into a school, and she's going to be off attending another high school next term, which frees up another place so that we can keep turning over the kids as well.
Sure, thank you.
And we'll just finish with a very quick one from Simon.
Thank you. Kia ora koutou. Good to hear from you. Just interested to clarify what zone you might be drawing students from, or your sort of geographic focuses.
Yeah, so we spoke, so our sponsors are Burnside High, Papanui High School, Cobham Intermediate and Casebrook Intermediate. So our zone encompasses the zones of those 4 schools. And we spoke with the other community board on Monday night via Zoom to attach ourselves to that board. And then obviously there's an overlap with this board with the zone as well.
Come
And very quickly, Victoria.
Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Victoria, the council for Papanui.
My name is Brother Tyrant.
There's some overlap with the work that Te Ora Hau is doing here.
Say again?
Is there some overlap and some similarity with the work that Te Ora Hau?
Absolutely, we work with outside agencies, but we're actually backing ourselves with the expertise that we actually have internally. So while we do work with external providers, and including one you've named with the attendance service, we also the idea is to take the pressure off all those external providers with the skills like this gentleman next to me that we do ourselves. So we also have a therapist who's absolutely stunning and does amazing work. So we've got a great internal team. So we're not actually relying as much as you might think on those providers.
Okay.
We can take the pressure off them as well. It's very short answers again too.
Thank you very much.
One questions.
Thank you very much for coming along and introducing yourselves, and we look forward to working with you.
Yeah. So hopefully our turn on the same doesn't affect anyone else. Thank you for your time. So okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can see.
Right, Reese. Right.
This too.
Welcome along, Reese. So just a heads up, you've got 5 minutes. Fire away when you're ready.
So, yes, I'll introduce myself. I'm Reese. I captain the robotics team at my school called Aotahi. We're in town, and recently we did really well with this robot at the national competition for robotics in Auckland, which qualified us for the World Championship. So that was really cool, but it's a massive expense to go all the way to the North and compete. So we approached the youth fund here for funding. Can't remember the exact amount, but it was substantially one of our larger contributions. And I'm here today, I guess, to talk about what came of that funding. I guess I should talk a bit about how the robotics works. So each year you get set a challenge. This year it's to do with these rings and these goals mainly, scoring your team's colour on, and you get points and you compete against 2 other people with a teammate. And then from that you get points and you get ranked. And then from that ranking, you partner up and you have a sports style elimination bracket to find the winner. We were ranked, I think, 7th or 9th in New Zealand when we finished the qualifications at our nationals, and then with our teammate, we made it to the finals, so the runners up in New Zealand. We did quite well. We weren't expecting to do as well as we did. We had some problems with our robot, but we were able to overcome it with good strategy. The World Championship is quite a similar event, but instead of 70 teams, there's 800. Just in our age range is about 2,000 if you count all the different ages. It was in Dallas, so quite a trip. That's why we needed funding, and it's over 4 days. So we did reasonably well for a team that's only been there once. There's some teams that go there 4 or 5 times in their span of doing robotics. We won 4 of our 10 matches, so that we beat 8 of some of the best in countries around the world. So that was pretty cool, and we really learned a lot. Like there's things you just don't learn in New Zealand because robotics is so small. I think there's maybe 150, 200 across the whole country, whereas there's thousands upon thousands in places like the US and China. So they really have a whole pipeline of people coming to, and that's what I'm trying to build up at school. So through robotics, through this, by getting to the World Championship, we have been able to secure funding for 2 new teams at the school.
What 2 new?
Teams, maybe 7 or 8 students interested there. Well, I just was working with them today, so that's good. They'll be competing in Christchurch, starting in robotics, eventually moving hopefully to the top team, and that's really my goal through doing well with this robotics, to get kids interested and joining up, and so we can get more funding, we can get more fits, and then more people learning. Because in the classroom, kids can kind of be turned away from doing engineering because it's very like you write down or you sit at your computer or you work with preset plans, whereas it's very much the entirety of BEX. Their main rules are student centered, so an adult can only give so much help. You got to go away, you got to come up with the designs, build it, code it, document it, compete with it, work under pressure, work to a time. You learn really good engineering and also just core life skills in a way that also people really enjoy. Like there'll be kids who spend, like me, hours upon hours a week or even per day doing pretty much what would be schoolwork in any other curriculum because the competition makes it fun. And that's what I like about BEX.
Cool. Great. What a great rundown you've given us.
Yeah.
Bit of time.
Oh. Oh. Do you know what it is? No. Robot.
Hey Reese, while you're getting that ready, you and your school and your family very proud. You didn't tell us, but you're very humble, was that you carried the flags of the New Zealand team at the opening ceremony.
Yes.
You were over there. Can you tell us what that was like?
That was very cool. So they introduced each country in the opening ceremony. It's an arena completely packed and loud, probably about and each country, a certain amount of kids get selected to represent that country. Since we're so small that pretty high likelihood to get to go up.
Yeah.
And I won a game of paper, scissors, rock. So that was very cool. I have some photos I can send you. Just
That'll be lovely.
What, are you carrying the flag or playing paper, scissors, rock? Oh, okay, right.
I think your mother's just posted it on social media.
probably
Yes.
to do that.
What does 8888 3K mean?
You have to, so that they know who you are, you have a school number, which is unique, which is the 88883, and then K is the team in the school.
Right.
So bigger schools have multiple numbers, whereas we get to just choose what we want. I chose 8 because I started doing robotics at another school and they use 88 at the start. And I just picked this because it really annoys the commentators. That makes you memorable. Because a lot of this is trying to be memorable when teams go to pick you.
You're pretty memorable.
Yeah,
that
is.
Another way we're memorable is we have LED lights, which
Oh, yes, that's me.
they're legal because they do technically help us in the competition, but that's not necessary. So main aspect is it has pick up these at the back, up recently, and then once you're holding this, pick up room. Yeah, I have videos of it working. Then the one other aspect is there's these similar kind of poles, but they're about this high, attached to the wall. So we have them there and pull them up on the wall, which we didn't end up using as much as we expected at Worlds, but it was good to have it there since these very quickly can get all taken up, and there's not much you can do with the last 30 seconds. So it's all about scoring a few extra points to break a tie.
Do you have to suggest a real world application of what you're doing?
No, I think that's one of the things I like about Vex. They don't push you to make a real solution. They know that this is you're learning with a fictitious one that's a lot simpler to learn the skills for a real one. It
just helps you do whatever you want,
Yeah.
really, doesn't it? Yeah.
if you like if there's so much on this to do with engineering, and one of the biggest ones is just the document. Like it's writing down. But the moment you get into this, they're a lot more willing to spend the time to write down what they did because they're proud of what they've done. It can help them do well in a competition. So that's one of the other cool things.
Are there many women that are doing this?
Not in our team. We're all males, but I have tried to push that. My dad's he used to run code clubs and was very pushing that. I also help support the robotics at a few other schools, mainly St Andrews. That's where I got started, and they are trying to push this moment. She teaches there and she tries to push girls into coding. So it's, unfortunately we don't, but it is, if there is anyone, a girl who's interested at the school, I would try very hard to get them involved.
Really fascinating and well done.
Thank you.
We're proud to have been able to help you get there, and thanks for coming along and showing us. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Well done.
Are you on your bike?
Grace. Next up, we have Dave.
We should get racing.
David Lear.
Yeah.
Welcome along.
Yeah, all I'm here.
So just before you started, you got 5 minutes?
Yep.
And it includes time for the questions.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm a sustainable woodworker. For the last 8 years, I've started working with urban timber. So that's harvested from end of life trees that come from not commercial works that come from our cities, on the streets and parks. Currently, a living tree is seen as an asset, a dead tree is seen as a liability. This cost is passed on to the landowner or the ratepayer, depending whether it's private or publicly owned. But overseas, there's a lot of work on urban timber recovery, especially in the ACT, where they've committed it to plans and they're actually managing and harvesting this as a resource. In this process, they found that there's 5 uses where they manage the timber, which is quite exciting because, like I said, these trees are a waste product, so it's taking something from a waste stream and adding it to a value stream. Currently, one method of disposing of this timber is used in New Zealand, which is mulching. And of the 5, it's been identified that that's the only one that's not greenhouse neutral. At the higher end is furniture that could go into anything, into buildings as building materials. When it is a material, it will contain that carbon. It's sequestered over its life in that piece of furniture. This chair I brought today is not just the chair. This has our story. The walnuts come from Banks Peninsula. The oaks come from Cheviot Hills. The elm has come from Hororata. And the ashes come from a tree still standing in Happy Park that dropped the branch. So all of this is carbon negative. It's used techniques that date back to the Russians, the Romans, sorry, predates them, but it's still as relevant today as the day it was made. This chair will last over 100 years, but this is just one use. Really, it's about keeping the story of the timber, and this process actually started in Canterbury in 1859 on Banks Peninsula at Orton Bradley Park, where he planted these trees, walnuts, 150 species, and he did studies for milling the timber. He had a sawmill there, a water-driven generator to run the mill. It's nothing new, but this is actually a worldwide movement to utilise this material as a resource. There's a lot of economic, educational, environmental benefits to local businesses and to our citizens. And it can basically provide sustainable local material and reinvigorate lost skills. Yeah, it's about everything.
It's a beautiful chair.
Any questions, Ellie?
Yeah, thanks, David. So why don't we do this? We've had 260 trees go in the last 4 months, 5 months from our parks and our streets, and they've been turned into mulch and firewood predominantly. Why are we not doing this more?
I think you'd need to ask the council that really, because overseas it started at a policy level. Like I said, we see living trees and asset, a dead tree, that circle of life stops. And we've missed a step where we really need to catch up with the rest of the world. And there's a step to add back in there where we can actually manage this as a resource.
Have you talked to council about that?
I have.
Doing it now.
I mean, at parks level and stuff.
Yes, I have. Yeah.
In all fairness, we have done that at Emmett Street with those trees that had to be taken down and the community wanted to keep them, and some of them may be made into home, maybe some furniture.
Most of it's getting mulched and fine.
I think the key thing is there's centuries of knowledge of managing each timber, and it's really, there's trees in South Hagley that have come down. They are highly valued furniture species that are non-durable. They'll start rotting straight away as they're on the ground, where they could be making high-value furniture that will last centuries. So it's really about having the conversation and having the framework. Collaboration with everyone involved is a big one, because everyone faces challenges, but it's actually, an ACT is a blueprint of how it can work, really.
And we'll go Simon and then Blake.
Thank you, David. Just curious to know what options there might be near the city for milling of timber in these kind of situations.
Yeah, so the whole blueprint really, if you review urban timber recovery in the AC document, They've had urban forestry, farm forestry, commercial forestry. There's challenges at every level. Public trees can have metal in them, so there is negatives, but that just involves planning. Portable mills and milling at source, or utilising local sawmills as close as possible is identified in that document for sustainability. So you're not burning fossil fuel to mill it, and you're not burning fossil fuel to mulch it and release it.
And finally,
Thanks, David. I was just wondering, the skill factor in furniture making, where does that sit? Is it dying art? Are there enough people doing it? Is there room for more people to come into that area?
Yes, there definitely is. And especially, I spent 4 years working just on traditional methods for the very purpose of sustainability. Men's sheds crying out for timber, some of which we can only get from, because to steam bend, ideally you want green species straight from a tree that's still wet. The moisture content allows the conductivity to bend that timber with heat. Otherwise, we're relying on imported timber. In New Zealand, we don't have commercially grown hardwoods like this. We're relying on what our ancestors planted, and we're not utilising them when they come available. So it's really that management. Not all of it's millable, but that's why ACT has found the 5 streams. So you've got your mulch, you've got your biochar, you've got your landscaping timber, you've got fine furniture, but then you have materials going back into your parks buildings as bench seats. Lots of pavilions are getting built. It could be materials, panellings on the walls and ceilings. And when we replant, it costs a lot to plant an urban forest, but ACT found, well, actually that tree's going to die at some stage. Instead of disposing it as a waste, we're planting a local material that's at our back doorstep in 50 years when we want it. So it's really completing the circle of sustainability.
great. Thank you for coming along and talking to us today. I understand you've got contact for the council parks team.
Yes, so I've gone work with them, but
and we as a board will look to support you in whatever way we can with anything that maybe we have in our board area.
Emmett Street residents have contacted me, so I'm going to help them. They're going to manage it themselves, but they would like me to share my knowledge with drying and seasoning the timber, which I think what they're doing is really exciting.
That's awesome.
Cool. Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
And then we'll run out of time with.
Cheers, David.
Bring that up. Have something to do about that.
Yeah. Right, next up, predator free Auburn. Nigel, welcome along.
Nothing in there, is there?
Yeah, I'm Nigel Larson. This is Vicky Wilkinson Baker and Philippa in the background. We founded Predator Free St Albans about 2 years ago, out of concern, I suppose, for the rats that were always being seen in Aberley Park and surrounding areas. And so we decided to do something about it. And with the help of a community board grant of $780 about 18 months ago, that really helped to get us going in terms of being able to buy materials to build these tunnels. And we've had community involvement in terms of an old furniture maker at the Arvida Retirement Village in Caledonian Road. He helped get us started by building these tunnels. And then when he became unavailable through ailing health, we contacted the Christchurch Men's Prison, and they've got a couple of their people building these now for us. So that's kind of how we got going. The tunnels that are distributed to people around the suburb, as you can see probably in that picture that was showing a minute ago. Yeah, we've got about over 150 of them around the suburb now, and stretching as far away as St Albans bordering suburbs. And we've caught, as of today, about 119 creatures have been caught and registered on Trap NZ. So we're making inroads, and some people have been catching quite a few, like Vicky's been catching a lot.
I've got 15.
She's got a black beech.
On your wall at home, have you?
Big black beech tree that they love.
Yeah.
But anyway, with the funding that we've got from you guys and from Predator Free New Zealand, we get these built, and people can choose whether they want the traditional type of rat trap or the T-Rex style of rat trap. These are cheaper, and these ones are a bit more expensive. But for a contribution of $15 at the moment, people can get and have a choice of what they want to put inside the tunnels to catch the rats.
And we bait them with peanut butter.
So
there's no poison or anything involved.
And the other thing is that everyone's been given a couple of chew cards, so if you want to put them around your property anywhere, just put them about, I don't know, 20 centimetres above the ground on a tree or on a fence post or something like that, where you suspect rats might be using as a superhighway. And if there's any rats or indeed possums around, they'll chew on that blue stuff. It's non-poisonous, so it's okay for pets. And they'll chew on that, and you'll be able to know, you'll know where to put the traps. Yeah. If they don't chew on it, don't despair. We've had reports of people also saying that the rats sit on the fence and stare at them and don't go anywhere near the tunnels. So that's where people have to start getting cunning.
And we're getting the word out, aren't we? Because we're trying to get articles in the newsletter, Melbourne's newsletter. And we're looking at trying to broaden that a little bit and get into Mirabelle and Marahau as well. Expand the
that map shows a stark sort of boundary, I suppose, with Papanui Road. And to the west of that, there's really little activity, although over in Riccarton there is, and we're grateful to groups like Riccarton and the Richmond Community Gardens and Predator Free Waitaha and others. And the help of people like Emma at the community centre and Lynn O'Keefe, who does the bookkeeping for us and banks the money that we collect in terms of contributions. And the other thing that I wanted to mention was that the St Albans community newspaper has been very helpful for us in terms of being able to place articles if we want to have handout events. So we, through that and through advertising in the newsletter that comes out by month, every 2 months now, people around the suburb get to hear of what we're up to, and if they're interested, will contact us and get tunnels and traps off us.
And we do leaflet drops, don't we?
Yeah.
Around the areas.
Yeah, the Predator Free New Zealand money has enabled us to do quite large leaflet drops around the suburbs, particularly targeting the waterways where people see a lot of rats.
Emma, I know it's finished, but I've got a question just because thank you, just really quickly. I've been contacted by people who see rats around Melbourne Park. And when I've got in touch with council, I've been told that we can't put any traps down because it's a well-attended or visited park by humans and animals.
Yes.
Is there a restriction around putting these traps down in areas where there are people and animals?
Well, I don't know. In Hamner, in all those forest walks, they've got traps just like this, and you've got children and dogs and families. But I wonder whether there's a way you could make the back here, because there's a little, this has only got tiny hole.
Yeah.
But this, you have to be able to open this at the back to get the strap in. And so I wonder if there's a way you could padlock this down the front somehow. I don't quite know. How it would need a slight change so that it's safer.
Yeah, okay. No, I just wondered because I was thinking, because I knew that you guys did this around parks.
Yeah.
Well, why is that why does that preclude you from using?
One of the council, council has its own sort of protocols and what have you for the various parks that it's responsible for. Through the Predator Free New Zealand money, we were able to deal with private individuals, but we weren't allowed to put stuff on public land or non-privately owned land. So there are some, I suppose, restrictions on us from that point of view. We're using the Predator Free New Zealand money.
I wonder if I could use one of your traps at Melbourne Park.
Sorry.
I wonder if I could use one of your traps at Melbourne Park.
Right, we do have to wind it up there. Right? Thank you very much for coming along, giving us an update.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Very well, it's great to hear.
Thank you. Remember, I've asked Vicky to send a PDF of where people can pick these up from and stuff, so she's going to send it at the board.
Great, we'll now move on to item 5, our deputations. First up, we have Sutton Heritage House and Garden Trust, Ian Lockheed. Regarding the report we've got on our agenda today about the house.
Yes, good afternoon. I won't take up much of your time because you've all, as you've heard, all had a report prepared by Lynn Lockheed for council. The trust has leased the Sutton House for the last 5 years, and we are very keen to continue that. As you can see from the report, we've had a continuous stream of artist residents through the house, associated with the Christchurch City Art Gallery. We've had 3 Pacifica artists who've been associated with the Macmillan Brown Centre at the university. We've had another 3 involved with projects at the physics room, a couple in conjunction with COCA, and 1 performance artist through movement and art practice. We've also made quite a number of enhancements to the property. The gates that were designed by Tom Taylor specifically for the house that was stolen after the earthquakes have been replaced by the trust at its expense. So they replicate the original gates. If you didn't know they weren't the originals, you would pick them as replacements. We've also curtained the studio with curtains that effectively match those that were in the house before. And apart from the issue of privacy, the curtains have been really important in terms of being able to make the house habitable for residents during the winter months. We've made the house available to the public through open days during the Heritage Festival, through Open Christchurch, and I'm very happy to report that we haven't had a single person say, "Why on earth did you save this house?" Everybody has been very enthusiastic, extremely positive that it's owned by the people of Christchurch, and we've also gained quite a lot of knowledge about the house from people who knew Bill Sutton, who visited while he was resident there, and who've come back to see the house as it is now. I should also add that the trust nominated the house to Heritage New Zealand for listing, and the trust, the Heritage New Zealand has now listed the house as a Category 1 historic place. It's one of only a handful of artists' houses across the country. So we're very pleased about that it's given the house additional status. And it's also attracted groups from elsewhere in New Zealand, members of the Friends of the Auckland Art Gallery, members of the Wellington Club, and so on. So we've had not a large stream, but a steady stream of visitors to the house, in addition to the artists who have been in residence there. And I think one indication of the success of the Sutton House is that once artists have been there, they're desperate to come back. So I'm happy to answer questions you might have.
Right, has anyone got any questions? Ellie?
Just a quick one. Are you able to, I imagine there's probably not a lot of insulation or modern things, you know, in the house. Once it's been classified, what are you able to do with anything?
Well, the classification it really means one would want to negotiate any changes, not just with Heritage New Zealand, but also with the heritage team in the City Council. The studio is single glazed, for example, and it would have been a major intervention to double glaze that, and also a major cost. I mean, the house is what it is in terms of the fact that it was built in the 1960s according to the building regulations of the time. But we did have one of the things we've had to do in terms of the rent that we charge residents, because it's not let out at a market rent. We've had to put a cap on the heating that the trust covers, because we have found that some of the residents, particularly those from northern New Zealand, do burn through an awful lot of power.
Thank you.
Right. More questions? Thank you for coming along. It's helpful to hear all that before we have that report to us today. So thank you very much.
So thank you. We look forward to the renewal of our lease.
Yeah.
We'll get into that shortly. Next up, we have Hayley from We Are Richmond. She's going to speak to us about the Petrie Park tree planting.
Oh.
Well, Hayley, you know the drill.
Yep. Hi. Hello. Thanks for having me today. I'm not going to blur on about Petrie Park. She's good enough about that for me. But all I want to say is that we're super keen to get this approved today so that we can crack on with the rest of our work around the tree planting that's going to occur in the winter time. So the as you'll hear from the staff, the consultation went really well, and our community engagement with the people around the park's been going really well. We've just recently executed the dogs of the Petrie Park murals, and we've got them all online, and it's been so good. We've had so many people say to us, "Where's my dog? And my dog missed out." So I think we're going to do another round of that coming up. So I guess we've come to a bit of a standstill because of the urban tree planting, so consultation. So we haven't been able to finish what we started. So we really need this approved today so that we can get on and get the seating in, the tunnels and the mound smoothed out and planted. The plants arrived today from the parks team, so we're ready to go to do a community session with those. We've got our dog poo Pikashi trial that we're doing through the Sustainability and Innovation Fund, so we'd like to get that in. And we've nearly got all the money together for the pavilion, so we need to get the drawings done, the consenting in, and get the pavilion built. So we're good to go. We just need approval.
Great. Pauline?
Thanks, Hayley. You're a knockout. The pavilion, that looks very similar to the one in McFarlane Park. Is it the same guy going to build it? Or?
No, but it'll be very similar to that, and also the one in the Margaret Mayhew, but a smaller scale. Yeah. So it's not going to be big, and we've worked with the parks team and decided that barbecues and things aren't the right fit for it because we want to keep it low maintenance and easy to look after. So it's really about providing shelter for people using the park, and it's situated so that a family could be sitting in the shelter and looking at the whole park, because you've got the left and the right side, and you've got the playground as well. So for safety. Yeah, so it's really about providing shelter and also for us to capture water, because there's no water in the park currently either.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, just the other question I've got is that one house on the south boundary who worried about the shade.
Yeah.
Is there no way you can bring the plantings further away from the fence? I know they're going to be, what do you call that? Recessed or something like that. You know, for these.
I believe they've made those adjustments in the plan. I guess the staff will talk about that.
We'll Toby when we get
so they're not overly upset then. Those
no.
That's good.
And also you might have seen in the news the big house that got moved.
Yeah.
That's actually facing the whole park. So we've been working with the homeowner, and originally he was, we've had a bit of banter, but he's pretty happy with what we were doing, and we've been really mindful of his sightline and the connection between his property and the park as well. So yeah, because it's quite, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's big.
Oh yeah.
yeah. So
I think just we had David in before talking about reusing wood.
Yes.
I'm looking at that pavilion.
I was thinking exactly the same thing.
Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
Because I have talked to David before and he said actually we import a lot and either from overseas or from the North Island, that kind of wood. Is it something you've thought about reusing? Or?
Yeah, so I've worked quite closely with the Edgeware company, the Hardy's, who are health-based systems. So yeah, so they're my preferred working because they work in sustainable beach products and things that are grown here in Canterbury. So we'll certainly be looking at making sure we're using the products.
Awesome, thank you.
Right. Yeah. So yeah,
More questions? No, thank you for coming along.
cool.
Yeah, time.
Great tree planting weather, isn't it?
Right, and then on the same report, we've also got a deputation from Chris Mackey. Come up and.
Hi.
So I believe you own the house that Hayley.
Yeah, I'm the guy.
Oh,
who owns
I've seen you on the news last week.
the big house. Yeah, following on from what Hayley's wanting to do with the park, we are pro doing something with the park because in its current state, it's a bit of just kind of going nowhere. Their hands are tied because the council want to do something, they want to do something, but kind of from our point of view, we've watched nothing really happen. We're a bit concerned about the shading. As a builder, I applied to the council to build a property and there's no way that I get away with the shading on another property that's been created by the trees. I asked the people who were at the consultation in the park and they were going to come back to me but have not heard anything, and it was a very last minute thing that I found out about the consultation to register my interest at the 11th hour, saying that we're really disappointed with the way it's happening. From my point of view, massive trees go in the middle of the park away from the south facing properties and then scale the trees back. It seems really basic to do that, but I'm not sure if that's completely been considered. And the attitude of, it's fine, it won't be for 25 years that they will grow to full height. We plan on staying in our house. We've done a lot of effort to get it where it is. We plan on being there for a long time, 20 years. Yeah, so in 25 years, I don't want it to be an effort to pass the baton is the way we see. We're in control of our house right now, but everything that we've done with our house has been a purpose for the next person and the next person, and we anticipate that our house will be around for another 100, 150 years. I would be disappointed to think that our house, as big as it is, would be in the shade, just purely the way someone's chosen to plant something. Again, don't get me wrong, I'm not against the trees. Trees would be great. It's just how are they planted, and if they are thoughtfully planted, if each of you were in my position, maybe you would look at it differently, and maybe the people in the council that are designing the planting, they might not think, oh, that's not the greatest on the northern boundary of that property. So I just wanted to come along to register the fact that we are a stakeholder to some degree. We're supportive of doing something, but
you don't want to be a casualty of it.
well, yeah, I don't want it to be not thought of with everyone's interests. I get that the council want to plant trees because it's good for the council to meet that guideline. I want Richmond to progress with what they're doing because they do a lot of good work, but it's hard when they can't move forward. But I just wanted to voice our opinion, which doesn't need to take 2 minutes. So
I have a couple of questions. Victoria, do you want one?
Thank you. I wonder if we can pull up the map that we've got. I'm trying to understand where you are situated around the park so I can see it in a visual.
So
on page 27, maybe?
I've got the agenda.
Is it?
Of the agenda, oh, yeah.
That one doesn't show the property.
Yeah, that doesn't really show. There is another.
Bring up the agenda for.
Yeah.
Page 27?
Yeah.
Please. Thank you.
So you're in.
You on there?
If you go down.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Is the. Yeah, that one there, if you go down.
Yeah, So the south of the park, go up a little bit further, please. Sorry.
Other way.
Go down, yeah. So the where does that, where there and the next one? And the next one, yeah. So our house has been moved right onto the centre of the two on the left. We have, and you guys helped us regain that chunk that was handed over many years ago to the bowling club. So we've regained that back, and our house essentially sits right in the middle of those two sections, but we do also own now this section on the right. So all three sections that bound the south of the
You've only
park.
got a few more to go along
So
there,
the-
don't you?
Mm.
You own a lot.
So is the shading going to be on the dwelling, or is it going to be on the
Yeah.
recreation area?
It'll be on, it's encroaching the dwelling, yeah. Yeah, there is a shading diagram somewhere that we saw that.
Page 30.
The other thing that also concerns me, that we do also own houses on Stapledon's Road, which are also 110 and 102 Stapledon's Road. My brother owns 98 Stapledon's Road. So we own a lot of the edge of the park that are to the west of the park that will also be shaded. Again, I don't want to get in the way of trees being planted. I just like plant the big ones in the middle, where they can kind of do their thing, as opposed to towards the peripherals.
I think that is the idea, isn't it?
Well, is it?
Yeah, we can ask the question of staff when we get to
Yeah, just looking at that there, you can see there's a cluster of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 towards the south, and then there's a couple of smaller ones dotted around the outside.
I'm going to go and point.
Sure.
Caleb, do you want to point?
And it does, they are labelled as in the legends, but like we're here, this pink shading is 50% of our property. Our house sits here, so everyone generally lives on the west side of their building, so we've got shade all through there. But like big tree, big tree, big tree, big tree, big tree, big tree, and then a couple of small ones. So it's just
One small.
So that's all day shade,
No.
peak day shade, I believe.
peak day shade.
And it'll change through morning and afternoon. I think that's
that 10:30 a.m. this
yeah.
this
So
window.
there's
Okay.
so our house is there. So, yeah.
Yep, Ellie.
Consultations obviously to consult and engage and discuss and change. So we're at a position now that is still not ideal for you.
No,
Right, so when you have presented on this or questioned or been involved, what feedback have you had?
from
Council or whoever you've been speaking with?
I never really got a reply. Like I read it, I literally went to the day in the park,
Yeah, I saw you. Yeah.
looked through and I was like, what's going on here? And kind of got fobbed off.
So you
to be
spoke to
honest.
the engagement people
Yep.
there and you haven't heard back since then?
No, I gave them the email, and the only I know they've got my email.
Yeah.
Probably based on my pushing forward of my submission, and I got notification of this today to be here, but otherwise have not really been engaged with from the council.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and reading the report, it kind of, I don't know, covers over my disappointment and what's going on. Like, yeah, well, I don't know. I don't want to be that whinger that's just moved into the area. We've been planning this whole process for a real long time, and now we're finally there. And now we've just obviously got this to manage, and it won't be an issue in the next 5 years, but it will be an issue at some point.
We're at the start of a process, so we might as well try and get it right.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, let's trim that later, or we can do this, but that trimming costs. Yeah, it just needs to be managed better.
Yeah.
No, we appreciate you coming along and having your say. It's definitely going to help us make a decision today.
Cool.
And yeah, as I say, we will hear from staff in response to your
Thanks.
concerns shortly when we get the report.
Thank
So
you.
thank you.
Cheers, thanks.
Right. Item 6 is petitions. We don't have any of those. We might actually, because we've got members of the public here, we will jump to item 9, the Petrie Park tree planting. And we've got Toby joining us online. So Toby, you would have just heard both Toby and Chris speaking. So did you maybe want to respond to those concerns first, or anything else you want to mention about the report?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I should really apologise for not getting back to Chris. I did get the email handed on to me. It was when you were talking that I realised it was something that I hadn't responded to. So that is certainly on me, and I do apologise for that. I do generally get back to people, but this one hasn't been good enough. So sorry for that. I hear you. I understand your concerns. We do, and this is, I should have talked to you because I could have explained all of this to you when we talked. We do plant lower on the edge and build up to the middle. If we've got the report sitting there and you look at where we've got those recession planes, you can see recession plane 4, which shows how far we set back from the boundary before we plant. And it shows the recession plane that we use. One of the issues we're having a bit with the shade modelling is it's showing shade on the ground, and we have had a couple of instances where we've actually put the building up and we've shown in winter that where that shade, so if you scroll, I think up a page, so that's section 4, that's the profile that we use on that 26-degree recession plane. So we use the same recession plane you would use if we were building a property. So if we were going to build a property, that would show how close we could get to the boundary and where we could plant where we could build based on our height and the edge of the boundary. So the same building principle we use for our trees. The trees that we're planting are only medium trees in that section, so we don't actually get to the large trees. However, a medium tree is still 10 to 15 metres, which is tall by most people's standards. In trees, it's classed as medium, but that can also be a bit deceiving. And yeah, like I say, with the shading, we have had a few instances where we've showed shading on an actual building and on a plane. And when you start to actually get the plane up, and if you go to a metre, that shading draws back a bit. I don't know what it would be in this instance. Because shading in the winter, the sun is quite low, to avoid that shading or to drop that shading down, you've got to go back. You pretty much would only do small trees. You'd struggle to get medium. If you can see, like we're showing on that profile with the recession plane for number 4, how far we're already setting back to get those medium trees and the shading impact in winter. And it's just due to the height of the sun through winter.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, thanks, Toby. Where the tall tree is in that section 4, does that represent the centre of the park?
It's just depicting the recession plane model that we've used to show the height. I think when we go to the tree numbers and planting, sorry, it's one of many that I'm working on, but I seem to recall that we're only really getting into, medium trees. So we're planting 28 small and 15 medium. So we haven't actually got any large trees in there because of the recession plane. So by the time we come in from the sides, we never get to a height where we can throw in any large trees.
No, that's good. That's good to know.
Yeah.
But I mean, because there's other houses affected as well. I would imagine
there is.
The highest point of that 30-metre tree would be the centre of the park.
Yes, it would be. So this is just kind of displaying what that recession plane model shows. So if there was no side impacts on that number 4 recession plane, then we would be able to get to those very tall. But because the narrowness of the park, those other recession planes end up keeping the trees in that smaller size range.
So do you feel confident that that is not going to create a huge amount of shading in 15 years' time? Or in 15
not in 15, no. Yeah, like the tree maturity that we're looking at, so 25 years is, I mean, small trees, they might get to the height because they're smaller, but generally our medium to large trees, we're looking at 50 years. The shade modeling that we're showing is in the middle, is at the worst time of winter. And like I say, it shows the shading on the ground level. Other ones we've done where we've shown a fence line and we've shown how far a 1.8 metre fence depicts the shading at that time as well, and how far that spans. And again, it's on the ground. Once you actually start to get up, it does change the impact. But again, I apologise. I probably could have sorted or at least explained a lot of this if I'd given Chris a call like I'd intended to.
Thank you. So basically you are saying that Chris's concerns are alleviated.
I wouldn't say they're alleviated. I don't want to downplay his concerns. I just want to give him some, I just want to basically explain how we come to this and the methodology we use to try and address shading on neighbouring property, which has never been done in the past, I might add. In the past, we just went and planted trees. So we are trying to make an effort. We are trying to acknowledge those impacts that we have on properties. And this is the model that we've come up with to try and do that.
Well, and just one last question, if I may, the species of tree, does that let any light through? Like, you know, some are more dense than others. What species have you got there?
We haven't chosen the species yet, but the species will be largely native species, so slower growing. Whether they let light through due to the density, so yes, if it was an individual tree by itself, maybe, but at that winter, because it's going to be going through those canopies because the sun's so low, you would get some through, you'd get dappled light through, but I wouldn't want to go and try and downplay and say there's not going to be shading because of the species.
And is there any way you could plant them in a less dense manner?
I mean, the only way to really make a big change in the impact would be to reduce the numbers by quite a lot, just because that shade impact in winter, it doesn't take much to cause shade in winter. It's really difficult to avoid. So not easily, I suppose, would be the answer.
So what would be the impact on the whole project if we asked you to reduce the density in that southern end?
Not deciduous tree.
It would, I suppose, change the outlook. So we've worked on this, I suppose, with We Are Richmond as well. So, and this is what's been consulted. I mean, anything's possible. We could change the density. I don't know if it's going to make a meaningful difference because I don't think the density is the issue. I think it's more the height of the sun.
Okay.
That's a challenge.
Ellie's got a question.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really concerned that we've got to this point actually. So these questions may have been able to be answered sooner. You've said that natives are going to go, and I'm assuming they're evergreen.
Yes.
Right. So if deciduous trees went in, that would improve the shade issue.
Yes, it would improve the shade issue, but there's other impacts of deciduous trees as well.
What, such as leaves falling?
Yeah, which is generally the next complaint we get. So.
Yeah, but have you considered, that there be a compromise here, that we get trees that are great in the summer and give foliage and canopy, but then also allow sun to come through in the winter when the sun is low? It seems a little bit like a no-brainer.
We can certainly look at deciduous trees. I believe We Are Richmond were quite keen on having natives, but that was my understanding. I could have that wrong.
But even a mix.
So, Toby, here we are in a decision-making meeting today,
yes.
And this major issue about whether we have a mix of evergreens or natives, and I am not an arborist, and we're having a conversation as to whether we should have discussed this before now. That I find that concerning.
Well, what we do is we look at the feedback that we get from the plan, and generally we get a strong preference to have native planting, which drives our species choice.
And then when you get suggestions or a strong sense that natives are wanted, do you proactively have a conversation with people to explain that deciduous trees may help people living in homes as far as sun goes? Or do you accept the strong feeling for natives and go in that direction?
We do a mix of deciduous and native trees in a lot of places, but in a forest environment like this that's trying to be established, we've been generally going predominantly native.
A forest environment, what qualifies this as a forest environment with houses and a dog park?
Well, it's got pretty much full canopy where they've got the planting.
So what would need to be done, it's my last question, what would need to be done to address the concerns and issues that have been raised today that are not going to slow things down? Is there a compromise here with where Richmond and others that could be reached?
We could, if we get
Hayley's
directed.
saying yes from the back, but.
What was that, sorry?
Sorry, Hayley is saying yes from the back, which is great because it's nice to have immediate responses.
Well, then it's a yes.
So that's a yes.
Yes.
So it won't slow things down. Okay,
No.
so I'm not sure. Can we get some staff advice, please, on what might be required as far as changing what any of the recommendations are? Or we leave it on the table, I don't know.
No, we can just change the word.
We can just change the wording to ask for a mixture of.
Ask staff to work with the resident and the Richmond to come to an agreement on the species of tree.
Does that work for you?
So,
That works for you, that the two organise, you and they speak?
I'm happy to make this up. Deciduous trees sound great.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy with deciduous trees, yeah.
Should we just?
No, to work on the
Tree species.
species mix.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Jay.
Oh, species is quite limited, isn't species and just species?
Yeah. Species mix.
All right, we'll come up with some wording, we'll check with Toby to see if we can work with that.
So I think it's the species. That's the
Species mix works.
Not number there. Okay.
He knows what we want.
Yeah.
Victoria's got a question.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Toby. I know a large part of the conversation has talked about the density and recognise that the change in density won't resolve the issue for shading. But looking at the obvious issue of height, if we've got a planting program that has tall trees and medium trees, is there an option to have a planting program that has medium trees and small trees? And would that alleviate some of the concerns? And is that an option that we should also be looking at, please?
That is what we've got. We've got small and medium trees. We've got no large trees in there.
Okay.
Yeah. So none of the trees meet because of the recession plan and the shading impact, there's no large trees planted in there.
No large trees at all, so we've got.
No large trees.
Okay, and so.
The tallest are medium.
Other medium. So if you reduce the number of medium ones and replace them with smaller trees, would that change anything?
It would potentially reduce the shading impact, but it changes the outlook from the look when you're looking in the park. So by having medium trees, you've got more coverage and less stems and a more open feel.
When we look at this amendment, request staff work with Rio Richmond on some boundary on a species mix. Can we also address then the sizing, so that you may change the number of medium size and small ones, so that there's more small ones, if you think that may.
We can incorporate that into species as well. So maybe it's a case of, so the species will also help determine the height. So species mix we can cover both.
That's what I was looking for. Thank you, Toby.
Yep.
I'm happy to move.
Yeah, we've still got some questions, but we've got Pauline and Sunita.
John is for the
Yeah, I've got John on my list. Do we have a seconder?
Yeah.
Sunita. So we've got Pauline and Sunita, but we'll just finish off with these questions. So we've got Emma, then Simon, then John. Emma, you got a question?
No, I think my question.
Okay, Simon.
Vacated.
Thank you, Toby. Just a quick one on the shade modelling, and thanks for your explanation in terms of how that is done. Just wanted to be clear in my mind that the shade modelling diagrams that we have are based on sort of the proposed mix of trees it's not the shading sort of cast by the recession plane, it's cast by what would be proposed to be planted. And would it be at maturity?
Yes, it's at maturity and it's a worst case scenario. So it's imagining that the tree is going to meet the maximum height, which they don't always meet the maximum height. And it's imagining that the tree is one big, solid, very broad spreading blob, which is not also the case generally.
Thank you.
And John, you've got a question?
Yeah, thank you. I just wonder if we're limiting the choices for the collaboration between We Are Richmond and Toby when we're limiting it to species mix, when there might be a couple of other tools that could help with that southern boundary, such as pushing the base of the recession forward, plane, the bottom of it forward, up northward a bit, or even flattening that plane, which could potentially be achieved at the same time as keeping natives and not having to mix the deciduous. I don't know. I would just interested in the board perhaps opening up that request to provide a few more tools to the parties. Would we flatten the recession plane, Toby?
We can capture that with species anyway. So the species will determine the height and everything. So if we're working with them, yeah.
Yeah, or either or. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Any more questions? No? Okay, well, we've got a mover and a seconder, so we will move on to vote. Pauline.
Yep, thank you. I think this is a great little project, and if we can just incorporate that 5, I think it was great that we all came to that agreement. Just will help to resolve any concerns from affected neighbours, because we don't want people losing sun. I think you need sunshine, it's healthy, and I think this actually is going to help incredibly. The idea here is this is creating an urban forest in this piece of park. An urban forest is an urban forest. It's not just shrubs. It's actually canopy trees being planted to help our environment and our neighbourhoods, especially looking at all the trees that we are losing in the area at the moment around there with intensification. So, and it's something for the future. As Toby said, we're looking 25, 50 years with these trees. So I think this is a great compromise that we've reached, and I just hope that, Toby, that you'll work really well with these people and come to an agreement that everyone's going to be happy. So, well done.
Anyone else? Ellie?
Yeah, I agree predominantly with what Pauline has said. I have to say that I'm disappointed that so much time has been spent on this in this meeting. I think that this should have been well resolved and much clearer to this point. I think that We Are Richmond and the neighbours could have had a bloody cup of coffee and sorted this out, to be frank, and that if we had a conversation between council and other people, we could have been in a far better position. We are not arborists, we are not experts. We shouldn't be discussing whether they're deciduous trees or not. That needs to come from our staff. So I am disappointed by that, and I think that if the report had been clearer and there had been better consultation, we would have been in a much better position to basically tick this off straight away. What I will say is that we need to get stuff right from the start. It's all very well to say, it's not going to be like this for another 25, 50 years or whatever, but why the hell wouldn't you get it right from the start? We've already seen that with trees in our streets that were fine when they were put in and now have had to come out because they're the wrong ones. We have got to get this stuff right from the very start. So bring it on and let's hope we can get it sorted ASAP.
I'll just quickly add, it's exciting to see this come before us today, and I'm looking forward to be able to support it. I'm glad we've been able to come to some sort of compromise and get people to work together so that everyone's happy. I've been along to a few of the community engagement events at the park, and people are really excited to see something happening because it is just an empty rose. So I thank We Are Richmond for your work on this and look forward to seeing it happen.
No, I just reply because I really think, Toby, I think this is a fantastic report. It's a really good report, and having those diagrams of the recession planes, I've learned a lot out of reading this, and it's really good. I think process-wise, the community is leading this. The council's come on board because we've got an active community that's taken the people on board with them. And this is the very place that we do nut out this stuff. We're not arborists, but we've got an arborist here that we can ask questions to, of which we have, and we've had very good response. We've had people coming in and talking to us. This is what we're here for too. So I think this process has been fine, and I don't mind spending a bit of time on it at the meeting to get a good result. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. Right, so we'll put that motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? That is carried. Thanks, Toby and Kieran.
Thank you.
for that one. Right, we'll now jump back to item 7, which is a notice of motion on Courtney Street.
Sorry.
Pauline, did you want to?
Oh, yes, this old chestnut. It has been kicking around for a while, but I think that we now, there's no doubt something has to be done. It's exceeded the 30% increase in traffic volume as a result of the Northern Arterial, which means that there is now budget for some work to be done from the DEMP budget. So I think it's timely that we actually put this up now and ask staff to look at sorting it out. There's options in there which are going to be left to staff to figure out. But I think number 4 is also asking for advice on safety improvements, which I think the deep dish channels are not safe down there, and investigating the intersection of Courtney, Trafalgar and St Albans where the roundabout was taken out. It's just inviting speed down there now. So, I mean, that probably should have been addressed after that was changed, with kind of an audit, but maybe it's timely to be there now. So along with the increase in volume, there hasn't been what am I saying? There's not a huge amount of speeding, apparently, but what we've got is a huge amount of intensification, as we've seen in that correspondence that you sent through, Ellie, today. And not a lot of people have got garages along there that in new houses, so it's getting very dangerous of people accessing their properties and finding parking on the street. Parking's not really our issue, but it all adds to the mix that this street is now a major carrier of transport going east-west, connecting Cranford with St Albans and Springfield Road. So a lot of people are cutting through there to get into the city. Now, I've had a request from Emma Twaddell if I would include, with the will of the seconder in this notice of motion, requesting staff to look at an area-wide, we've asked for this many times, traffic assessment of this area. So it would have to include going out to the west, like Springfield Road. Yep. So would you be happy with that, Samantha?
Yeah, absolutely.
Staff advice on whether it's covered by the DEMP.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Come back to you. On available resources. I'm sorry, I can't quite pick where the area is, but
do you know,
a lot of that.
I'm
Sorry.
Emma, we've probably got a record of a previous resolution where we have asked for an area-wide look at the transport effects. It would cover, I'd say, Cranford Street, Innes and around Stapleton's, Springfield.
Isn't that the DEMP?
That's what the DEMP.
That's what the DEMP does.
Yeah, but it hasn't been looked at. I don't think, have you looked at the Stapleton's Road and St Albans and Trafalgar?
We have traffic monitoring on Springfield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Roosevelt's over the 30% as well. So, the idea is you shouldn't be just looking at Courtney Street and by itself. It should be looked at as a what area-wide.
Can I add something to
solution.
that too? And it's what you've just said, Pauline. I think it's not only, what people are forgetting is Westminster Street, where you can't turn left or right out of down that end. So that's being ignored in all of this as well, because that's creating
pressure on Courtney.
And people are going through Courtney not only to get to Springfield, but to get to Edgware, because I can't stand using Cranford.
Yes,
So yeah.
So can you suggest some wording that we might to capture perhaps a picture of what's happening there? Perhaps request staff feedback on data from the surrounding areas.
Once a day would be good, Pauline. We kind of know where people were going and,
For the surrounding area?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
For each of the, I was going to say, for each of the traffic count areas, we do have it broken down by direction, time of day, and Courtney, the increases on Courtney aren't driven primarily by people going northeast to southwest.
No,
Because we looked at that and whether the right turn from Cranford into Westminster is likely to bring it down below the 30%, and whether better enforcement of that would change would solve the problem.
Where are they going down?
It appears there's quite a lot of people going in the opposite direction.
But where are they going down? Are they going down Courtney towards Edgware or down Courtney to Springfield when they're travelling?
I don't know. We haven't got
That's
data on where they go beyond that. All we've got is spot data.
Yeah, but we
on-
need to
on
know that,
counts.
Jacob, so we know why they're
trying to
using
get.
it.
That's
Yeah.
what we're trying to
Yeah.
get. They're coming down Westminster from.
Yeah.
Well, hang on, Em. This is what we're trying to ascertain.
Yeah.
A picture of the traffic flow when they come off Cranford and into that whole area.
Yeah.
So how
But
could,
isn't that part of them? And if we want that information, we can ask for it in an information session, because we get the regional information
Yeah.
sessions on.
Yeah, I mean, there are sources of data where we can get that, moving people through, and we can get that
all
data.
right, we'll take this out. Can we have an information session on that?
Absolutely.
All right. So that I will not carry on that forward. So I've got four resolutions there. And so I would like support for the board to support that today, please.
Do we have any questions of staff or Pauline? Victoria, you need your hand up.
Is DEMP a limited pool of money?
Well, council has set aside an amount of money, and the issue we have with DEMP is that if we have increases, we have to deal with them. So that's why I'm sort of trying to preserve the money, as it were. If we spend it all early, we will have to put a whole load more money in to deal with issues at the end, because that legal obligation isn't going to go away until the end of 2030.
Second
There are
question then.
safety issues caused by traffic.
Second issue then, we've been concentrating on the increase in traffic. What other evidence is there about this on this road? What else is what's Hybris telling us?
Oh, I can't remember off the top of my head. We've had some complaints about condition, but like we said, condition other than the surface isn't horrendous. We have had reports of cars being hit. I don't think we've had great big smashes, but we've certainly had reports of cars being scratched down there, which I think is to do with it being quite narrow, and the deep dish particularly.
Camber.
And the camber, tends to pull people towards the middle and make it feel narrower even than it is.
One of the concerns we've got is around some of the unintended consequences of making improvements to the road and the impact that's going to have on parking. I mean, we've acknowledged that there's a lot more intensification. A lot of these places are being built without parking. People are having trouble parking. But if you're going to try and alter the road, then you're probably going to take away the parking. So I'm very interested to see how you reconcile all of that.
I think being realistic and honest at this point, I think we probably will have a quite significant parking loss if we were to do works on Corney Street. I mean, I obviously haven't done the design, but I think trying to set expectations, it's difficult to see how we would do that without removing a good deal of parking.
It will be concentration.
In relation to the costings that we've got identified in here, they seem a little bit light to me.
What, the 2 million?
Yeah.
The 2 million is based on what we'd estimated for it. When was it? It was about 4 or 5 years ago. And then I tried to put an inflation factor on that, and then a little bit of contingency, but there's not a huge amount of sort of recent costing in there. It's quite a high level.
But there are some significant unknowns that you've identified in relation to the location of the underground infrastructure and the coal tower.
Yeah, we understand there was some work done there pre-earthquake to lower services. Now, I don't know if that's picked up every service, and that's something we don't know, and that's something we would have to do in the investigation phase.
Okay, sorry, final question. We want to run on a roll. Always alarmed when it says may be possible for the board to reallocate funding from existing street renewals within their board area to complete the same work. There's so much pressure on our funding. Is there anything that immediately comes to mind that you think could be a likely candidate for moving out slightly in order to release additional funds?
Not off the top of my head. Off the top of my head, I can't remember what the list in your area is, but we can certainly provide that when we come back.
This is our price.
Yeah, so if this fits within DEMP, then we don't need to look at taking money, borrowing from anyone else.
No, we don't. No, we just need to be aware that if
increases continue to happen, then Dent will still have to pay for other streets within the area.
Thank you very much.
Ellie.
Thank you. Just a few things that I wanted to know whether I've got them wrong or it's information you're unaware of. The NOR, we've said here that, you know, the 30% increase required, it requires us to investigate, but as we've seen with Flockton and the others down there, it doesn't require us to implement, right?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember the exact wording. I think it says we have to manage the impacts of.
Yeah, but we know from
30%.
Flockton and from the other one down there that because the residents said no thanks, we backed away from it. So
Francis, we did. Flockton, we didn't.
Well,
Flockton, we
whichever
put
one
in
it was,
speed.
Jacob.
We put in speed measures. Yeah. Yeah.
Francis already had them.
Yes, and there was
whichever
quite a lot
one
of
we
pushback.
had, we didn't have to put the mitigations in, and we heard from staff, the reason was that the NOR requires us to investigate but not implement.
I need to check the wording.
Okay.
I think it says that we need to mitigate the impact of, but that got such pushback that we discussed it with the independent traffic engineer. He supported the recommendation of not.
Okay, well, this is why I want to be really clear on this, because that's not the information that we got about that. So if you want to go back and just check it.
I think we've supplied you with the NOR.
With the NOR.
With the NOR.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
Yeah, so we
can
actually
certainly
did
go
put
and check
stuff
that, yeah.
into that street because we got such pushback from
Yes,
residents, that's right. The other thing too is it says on number 4, and oh look, by the way, thank you for putting this forward, Pauline, too. This has been such a long time left wanting. Number 4, requests urgent advice on safety improvements, including removing deep dish channels and investigating the intersection of Courtney Street, Trafalgar and St Albans Street since the removal of the roundabout. We also need to look at the Westminster Courtney Street end. You cannot look at this street and how it works without looking at that other end. And there's a woman who lives in I call it the gingerbread house on the corner of Roosevelt and Westminster. You know the one I mean, right? And I was just walking past the other day and talking to her, and she said one of the major issues in that Roosevelt Courtney misaligned intersection is the misalignment. She said if she had a chance to do something, she would have those streets aligning, because she said she sees so many near misses as a result of the misalignment of those two streets. So can I ask that the intersection of Westminster and Courtney and into the use of Roosevelt is also included in the investigation of what can be done? If Pauline's happy with that, it's her motion.
Well, I mean, that you could call that Courtney's. That's Courtney Street, and the resolution asks.
We could call it, say, Street.
Hang on, the resolution asking for advice to address safety concerns on Courtney Street, where Courtney meets Roosevelt. That would also be included on.
No, it's really clear that it says investigating the intersection of Courtney Street, Trafalgar Street and St Albans Street since the removal of the roundabout.
It says including. So it requests urgent advice on safety improvements. That means on Courtney Street.
Okay, I don't think that's clear. I'd reword that. It says requests urgent advice on safety improvements, including removing the deep dish channels. So that's one bit. And investigating the intersection of Courtney Street, Trafalgar Street and St Albans Street since the removal of the roundabout. A key part on how this road is working is the Westminster, Courtney, Roosevelt area where a roundabout has also been removed and the roads are no longer aligned. So that's why I'm asking, please, if those can be included specifically in the investigation.
I mean, it's not really a question for me. With the wording of it, I think we would probably go up to the Westminster Courtney Street intersection. I don't think we would pick up Roosevelt as part of that because it is a separate intersection.
So something we can ask for again with the deep stuff. We can ask.
I would also add that Roosevelt, as we've noted, is also over the 30%. So we will have to investigate things on Roosevelt, and so that may well get
do it as part of this.
It may well, and there's no reason why it wouldn't. It's just that it isn't specifically mentioned in this.
Can I rephrase this? Can we please add the corner of Westminster, Courtney and Roosevelt into the motion?
It's up to Pauline. So
okay.
Well, okay, so let's put roundabout, comma.
Why don't you just put including just intersections at both ends of
Thank you.
Street,
yeah. Including Roosevelt.
No, hang on, Mark, just put comma there at roundabout. And including Roosevelt,
Westminster and Courtney.
Westminster and Courtney.
Thank you, because there was a roundabout there as well, so that's another reason why we could have a look at it there. Okay. 4.1
Which actually Jacob said would have been included anyway, but if it makes you happier.
No, not Roosevelt. He said Roosevelt wouldn't have been.
I mean, the issue with Roosevelt, I guess, is that if it drops back down below, oh, sorry, I should just, if it drops back down below that 30%, we may stop investigating things on it, so it may get dropped out. So if it's specifically mentioned in here, we will look at it and come back with advice.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Dropping.
So 4.1.3 in the report on page 14 talks about at the time of writing, the independent traffic engineer has assumed no background growth, meaning that they believe all traffic increases on these streets is due to the opening of the CNC. How is that conclusion reached? And yet, when we look at Flopton and keep forgetting Francis, Flopton and Francis, we ascertained, or it was ascertained through your modelling, that that was local traffic. Why the difference?
It's not that whether it's local or not. The issue here is that the wording of the NOR says that it's 30% as a result of the opening of CNC. That's the wording in there. Now, Flopton and Francis are a bit of an odd case in that they, I think the 30% came because we closed. Got the name of the street. Forfart Street. Thank you. We're all together. And it directed traffic round. So it's a kind of second order effect of the CNC, I think. Whereas this is purely traffic coming from it. But as you've noted, there's intensification. So I think with intensification, you would expect the background traffic to increase to some extent. And the question then is how much as well. And so it's a very difficult question to ask. At the moment, I'm going to massively oversimplify it, and Dave's going to look disgusted at me later on. But he's basically taken 2 points which are on the edge of the DEMP area, but outside the DEMP.
Yep.
And he said there's been no increase in traffic in those two areas. And on that, he said, based on that, he said he assumes there's no background growth through the DEMP. Now, we've had a whole lot of census data that's come in that'll show how population has changed in the area, how car ownership has changed in the area. And from that, we may well agree that background growth is a different number to zero. But at the moment, I have no way of saying what that number would be. But as I'm noting there, these numbers are taken from the baselines in 2018.
Yeah.
So if we have I worked it out, that you end up with a doubling in the numbers that don't count as CNC if you get 3.5% growth. That compound effect gets there really quickly.
All I'm asking is, because when we look at how we're going to help mitigate the problems we're seeing, where the traffic's coming from and why they're there is an important part of this. And so with Francis and Flopton, it was ascertained that it was local. This is saying it's coming from the CNC. I was interested how you were able to ascertain that. Yeah, so that's fine. Leave it. Don't worry. It hasn't been answered, but that's fine. 4.2.1, you talk about the road counts, first breached in March 24. There was a road count at the end of 24, though, wasn't there?
Yes.
And that hasn't been mentioned.
September, yeah. So they're done twice a year, March and September.
Yeah, right. So that's not.
There's been two since.
No, but that's the point. So it was first breached then, it was still breached in September.
Yeah.
And the works then stopped on Innes Road, because our working hypothesis at that point was that people weren't going down Innes Road because of the works, and they were redirecting through Courtney. And we thought once the works are finished on Innes, they'd all move back and we'd get that number come back down.
This is the briefing we had a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm just saying I understand that. That was my question, but that's cool. That's good. I have another question though around when Lynette was here and we asked about what had been done, if anything, with regards to ascertaining what services were in the surface of the road, and you have made a reference to that today. How much work and how difficult is it to find out? I mean, I don't know, do you just use LiDAR to run over the surface to see what's there? How hard would it be to find out what is actually under that surface?
You can't absolutely tell until you dig up the road, which is the problem. There are ways to give you a better and better picture, and if work has been done in the past, we will be able to find that work and we'll be able to understand where what services have been moved and what level they've been moved to.
Yeah, okay, no, that's
It's been
fine.
closed for about 6 months.
Yeah, 4.6.2, you mentioned there's access on Courtenay into St Albans School by the Westminster Courtenay intersection, which anecdotally causes high pedestrian usage. It'd be really good if we had some actual stats. There's actually not a lot of pedestrian, school pedestrian traffic down there. The pedestrian traffic is down Westminster. So that's where the school people go. So again, I just want to ask that the stuff we're getting is not necessarily.
I think that's your view. It would be good to have the data.
Yeah, it would. And I think the one anecdotally in there is to try and point out that we don't have objective data on this. Yes.
No, just a motion asking for it.
That's right. Yeah, but if we don't.
I didn't intend this.
If we don't raise information that is currently not correct in the stuff that's in front of us, it will just be perpetuated as we move forward. So that's why I'm
Westminster Courtenay Road, that's where the school gate is.
I'm just a little disappointed by some of the language in the report too, because I know that this Courtenay Street issue has been pushed back and pushed back. And we've got things like average speeds are mostly appropriate. There's been 7 reported accidents, which only 1 is serious. There seems to be just a little bit of what do you call it when you reduce the importance of something? I just feel that with this, Jacob, that it's slightly editorialising, and also it makes it look as though I think it shows why we can't do something instead of why we can or how we can. So, for example, there's, as Vic's already mentioned, there's quite a lot about it'll put extra pressure on other teams if we do this, it will do all that kind of thing. I think we need to focus on how we can actually get this done. It just feels like a predetermined.
We'll vote for the notice of motion.
Yeah. Well,
On that, the way we're asked to respond to notices of motion is to lay out the facts and then tell you as decision makers what the impact of you putting that notice of motion in will be. And one of the things we're specifically asked to do is on staff work that they're currently undertaking. So that's the point of that, is to say that this is the impact of you.
Yep, no, I understand that. Only 1 serious accident. No, I don't think you need an only on that, actually. The road, the guttering, just to be really clear, the guttering, you talk about modern L-shaped guttering at one end of Courtenay. That's only on the school side. So the guttering that is down there in some places there is no gutter. Just so that we know that we haven't got modern guttering right the way down Westminster Street. That's noted in here as well. Okay, no, how long will it take to actually get this, do you think? Back on this.
Yeah, I think we are going to do, we had some brief discussion. We're going to do a pre-engagement with locals to see what they want and identify their issues, what they want, and we are going to provide high-level options back, report back to the council.
And that'll be the school and residents.
Yes, those residents, yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
And thanks, Ellie. John's got a question. Thanks for your patience, John.
Yeah, that's okay. The issue that this is a new project and will detract some project manager time away from existing projects, some of which are named in 5.7.1, and that'll require some reprioritization. Will those projects sort of just stay in the same priorities as they are relative to each other now, with this one put into the mix? And if the effect is a delay, roughly how much delay would there be across those projects?
It's really difficult to say. I mean, effectively, they're the projects that David has. And so it just means he's got to spread his time over more projects. If we get to a point where it's unfeasible for David, we'll bring in another project manager.
All right, thanks, John. Any more questions?
Just following up on that. Oh, sorry, did you say? Sorry?
Oh, I just wanted to bring up two things. Just following on from Ali with the wording and so forth, just that you're aware that we are sitting here representing 50 years of residents' involvement in Courtenay Street. This issue's been on the table for 50 years.
No question, Emma.
And the second thing is that with the budget again, please look into the fact that there should be some money for it in roading, not just DEMP. perhaps combine the two, because again, there has been no work done on this road for years. And in regards to it taking some other place in the whole scope of works, I'm sure that I can find documentation from 20 years ago that had Courtney Street up at the top of the list. So I'm not too sure what's happened with that. But anyway, the most recent one is probably the DEMP plan, which has, I just want to point out that I think in it has Courtney Street classified as a greenway. So make sure that we work out what that actually means moving forward as well. Thank you.
There was a question at the end. Pauline.
Just following up on the timeline. Could we put a timeline in the resolution? Can you give us an idea of when you could come back with that advice, please? 2 months, 3 months, 1 month?
Yeah, we're aiming to bring some feedback from the locals or high level options back to the board. Maybe in September, because there's to me it's kind of a lot of options. Like a high level, there are network options, there are localized options, so there are too many options.
Would you be comfortable if we put and report back to the board by September?
For decision is
no, for the advice.
Advice, yeah.
We just got.
Could we come back with that timeline? So
Yeah.
we might have conflicting from a comment that Lynette made. So if we can just double check on that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We come back, yeah.
You have got wording in your resolution there, Pauline, about
Urgent, yes. Okay, thank you. All right, should we?
Right, we just need a show of hands to show that we've got majority support for that slight tweak to number 4 there. Put the hands.
Can we see it?
Movement is.
Oh, yeah, we can put it on the screen, sorry, mate. So it's the addition of that, at the end there. So it's supportive of that, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have debate?
Done.
No, it's been said, right, okay, we'll put that motion, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against, it is carried.
Thanks.
David and Jacob.
Finally.
Right, item 8. That Ellie's taking it. Yep. Okay, we'll put that motion, all those in favour?
Aye.
That is carried.
Thank you very much.
Oh, no. What did I say to my email? What did I say?
Ellie?
I have to don the Northern Motorway now.
Oh, sorry.
Quiet.
No, it's because we had.
Move to St Albans.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And item
On Zoom though.
cross reserve place renewal plan.
So it's pretty quick.
Welcome along. Very good report, very clear, good feedback through the engagement. Do you have anything you wanted to say, or you just open questions?
Possibly just saying hi to those that haven't met me before. I'm a project manager for play and recreation in the community parks team, so that's probably all. And I hope the report was straightforward. So.
Yes, yeah, no, very well. Within any questions for Laura and Karen? No. Okay, I'm happy to move this one. We have a seconder, Victoria. Okay, we'll put that motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
That is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good.
That takes us to item 11, which is the discretionary response fund application for Maraho Library.
I'm happy to move
Stacey?
this.
John.
John,
John wants to do it. John wants to move this one.
Yeah.
Ellie, second.
Thank you.
Yeah, right. Pauline, you got a question?
Because this is only leaves what 1,800 or something, can't remember now. Why don't we just give them a bit more?
They've got funds on hands, so
They don't need any more.
no, the total project cost was 1,415, and they've got donations, funds on hands.
Okay,
So
Yeah, they've only
it's a
requested.
maximum amount thing.
thank you.
All right, we'll put that motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
That is carried. Thank you. And we've got our standing orders amendment notices of motion. Mark was just going to speak briefly to this one, I think. Were there any questions?
No.
No.
Take it as read. If anyone wants to discuss any of the issues, just let me know.
The only thing I wanted to say is thank you for reducing it from 15 to 10. I think that was the smart thing to do. 15 was far too long. So that was good, thank you.
Yeah, that would be my main point, is that's
Yeah.
the recommend to council 15, it's come back to 10, so that's very helpful. Thank you, Ali.
It was the council that did that.
Yeah.
But that's okay, Mark, you can take the credit.
Yeah.
Cool, I'm happy to move this one. We have a seconder. Simon, put that motion, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against, that is carried. And item 13, our area report for June.
I'm happy to move it.
Yep, Pauline seconded it. Have we got any questions? Staff?
Trevor, you can
Not Elliot.
Don't sit down. It's 11 to 6, don't sit down.
great job, the report.
Yep, a fantastic report again. We covered everything
Oh, just
going on.
a quick one, how's the intermediate swimming pool going? So have they, does anyone know anything about that?
Yes, so
I know
having a
that-
working bee about their fences, the old fence around the pool is coming down. I think they've repurposed some fencing from probably, I think, Richmond Community Gardens or somewhere, or even Otago. So if you're available on Sunday, I think there's a weekend bee going. 12 to 2, and then I think there's an afternoon slot as well.
Okay, this Sunday. But I'm talking more about the pool, so they look like they're doing cosmetic stuff. Have they investigated the plant yet or anything like that?
So it took a while to clear the pool. It was very mucky. The plan is to fill it and then see if it leaks and see if what they've currently got is fit for purpose. They've had some experts come and have a look and given them, because obviously they've gone to companies and they said you need all of this. So they're investigating low cost, no cost, best possible funding.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Let's hope, hey?
Yep, it's good.
Cool, okay, we've got a mover and a seconder, so we'll put that motion, all those in favour?
Aye.
That is carried. Thank you. And then finally, item 14, elected members information exchange.
Well,
I will go Ali, then Vic, and then
Yeah, very quick. I had 2 down. Okay, so just been speaking to residents about some of the disturbance in Dover Street. You'll remember the fire recently. So just having a meeting with OCHT and local police rep and one of the residents reps in the next probably week or so, just to see what, if anything, can be done there and what the responsibilities are of OCHT as the landlord versus what the responsibilities are of the police.
on that, may I come to that meeting?
Absolutely, anyone
Well,
can come to
can
that.
you-
Like, yeah.
Yeah,
that's sure.
I've had a lot of feedback on it as well. I've got residents that are quite afraid.
No, I think, yeah, well, I've spoken to about 8 of them down there
I've been in
too.
contact with OHT or whatever.
CHT, yeah.
But they have not, they told me they'd get back to me that day.
That's fine.
haven't heard.
Well, there's going to be someone there, so yeah, absolutely. I'll send a note around everyone, yeah.
Look, my fence, back fence goes to that property as well.
Right.
So I hear non-stop middle of the night.
Yeah.
Fights and.
I didn't
bangs.
realise that, Sunita. Okay, well, look, I'll send a note round. That's cool, thank
Yeah.
you. I've also been approached by one of the shop owners, the mini mart owner on Cranford Street, for a 10-minute park along there. You might remember we recently had some parking stuff around there. There's 60 minutes down there at the moment, so there's nowhere for people to stop for a bottle of milk or whatever. And I am absolutely stoked with one of the city council engineers who I emailed and said I'm going to speak to them about this. She sent me a map that David's looked at, marking 2 10-minute parks, saying it wouldn't be difficult to do with approval from board. Take this to your people and see what they think. And I went, oh my God. So I just thought that was incredibly proactive, giving me that, you know, information to go to them about. So I'm going to talk to them next week. That so that might happen, but it'll come back here.
There's a mini mart, is that on the corner?
It's there's the Suvalaki place, then one and then the mini mart.
Oh, over that side, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the random supermarket, random restaurant.
Oh, the restaurant, it's Korean now.
restaurant.
Yeah.
It's never open.
Yeah. Oh, no. Okay.
I think it just does bus tours.
Oh, thanks.
That's done.
All right, thank you. I'm done.
Cool. Victoria.
Yeah, thanks. As per usual, just an update on that Waidaki Aorangi intersection. The timelines are pushing out a little bit on the reopening of Waidaki to two-way traffic to right out until sort of end of July for Aorangi and September sort of for Waireki, so we need to be keeping an eye on that. Anyone who's familiar with the old dairy on Harris Crescent, we've got new tenants in there. It's just opened with a brand new shop this week, so it's really nice to see in and around that neighbourhood. It's just opened this week.
Nice.
Had residents complaining about the bark under the playground in St James Park has been severely depleted, and they're concerned about a safety hazard there. And the park's play spaces team has confirmed they're going to try and renew that bark within the next couple of weeks. It's a good piece of work. Papanui Bush planting day is now this Saturday. Remember, everybody. I've moved over from last week. I still think we're going to get more rain, so it's still going to be a bit tough but challenging. Then the only other thing was just those councillors know about this, but the community board members may not. We had a really great information session at council this week on the surface flooding program that we are working on with it's the surface flooding reduction program, where
Prioritisation program.
Yeah, prioritisation, and putting aside 20 million each year starting from 2027. And it's interesting because they have looked at the top areas, and in the top 30 there's about 4 from our community board area, being Cruisers Drain, Flockton Street, Edgeridge Village and Shirley. That's available on the hub, and I'd encourage anyone to go and have a look at it. Great presentation that was there. And then they ended up with about 158 flood pockets that I identified. So there's other areas within our community board that have featured on that. So it's really good to see that they are being recognised and will be part of that program as they start to prioritise it. So I just encourage you to pop onto VTCs and have a look at that.
Question,
That's a great piece.
Just quick question. Levels of service for business flooding is not, so there is no level of service for flooding into businesses. How is Edgeware there then?
So you need to go and have a look at the presentation, because they've identified a matrix as to what they're looking at, so that how they prioritise. So what you've got is your current levels of service, but this is a new program that we are have put money aside for, that they have developed a new matrix as to how they're going to prioritise and do that work. That has nothing to do with levels of service at this moment. So go and have a look at that new program and what they're proposing.
I hope they're coming to the board.
So sure. Say well, and what the commercial lens is on this is access.
Yeah,
and that's what. So I've managed to get the commercial thing put on, because normally it was only residential. Was our first priority for flood protection was people's homes and the water above floor.
It's a great presentation.
Dealt with that. So now we're going on to the surface flooding around town. Remembering that your streets are meant to flood. It's about how quickly it goes away. So areas where it sits and stays is a concern, but also commercial areas where there's access to multiple, like in Edgeware, there's a huge commercial impact there. So that'll be in the matrix. So they're actually still working on that priority matrix. All those areas will get different ratings in the boxes, and they'll fall out as a priority. And then we'll squabble over it.
Look forward to it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's what we do.
But I think it's really exciting, actually.
It's a great piece of work. There's so much science in behind it.
And people don't realise how much work there is before we actually start doing something. There's all that research, all that investigation, all those engineers engineering away.
I encourage everyone to have a look at it.
Thanks, Vic.
Is that all? Thank you. Yeah, cool. Pauline.
The little issue about the exercise area at Fortune Park. I think it'd be really good if the board did a site visit down there to actually eyeball what's going on, because I think a lot of this stuff is getting lost in translation. When you talk about neighbours and noise, that is the village, and it's the village who's asking for it, and they've already got their dogs, and the dogs are already in there. When we talk about the dog bylaw policy that's being reviewed, and that Fortune Park is already would you say on leash, off leash, whatever, that's really got nothing to do with it. All these ladies want is an area that they can let their little dogs off and sit down. They've got a seat donated already. Parks could possibly put a couple of canopy trees in there, which would be quite cool, because they're looking for spaces for that. It's got opportunity, but it's a really hard thing to explain. So would the board be interested in meeting down there and having a wee look?
I know in the email that came from staff today, it says they're preparing further advice based on their investigation. Would we not be better to see what that further advice is rather than waste board and staff time if
Just go past it. That's the way it's fun.
Why don't we just do it? I don't understand why we're not just.
I want to know what further advice they're going to.
Well, the thing is, my point is that I think the whole thing is getting lost in translation. It's becoming, I think Ellie will agree with this, bigger than Ben Hur.
Yeah.
The area is already fenced on 3 sides. It's 30 metres of fencing, which I think is around 10,000. There's a gate into the Lady Isaac that they've got a combination for. The ladies can walk out there with their dogs and go into the exercise area. I personally think it would add to the safety of the park because it keeps the dogs away from the children's playground, even though under the bylaw, dogs have to be under effective control, not go near the playground. But it's an added bit of safety and relaxation for the people who can let their dogs off in there. So it's not a dog park, it would be an exercise area, which is quite a different thing.
We're experts on it, aren't we?
Yeah, but the exercise areas don't necessarily fall into the
But the
bylaw.
explanation about what makes an exercise area in a dog park, there are exceptions in those that actually mean that they can be almost interchangeable. So it says that an exercise park can have some equipment in it, but may not. So, there's, I don't understand it. I think it's a bit kind of, but look, my personal,
make it a pest-free area.
well, I just don't understand why we don't just do it. Just trial it, and then if it doesn't work, then stop doing it. It is,
Well, we can't trial it because it would mean investing $10,000 in a fence, and I don't know how you could put a temporary fence up there with
Use
who would fund
windbreak.
that.
Use a windbreak. So, but anyway, look, whatever it is, we've got to get on with it because it's got a bit out of control.
So that's why
advice.
That's why, Emma, I thought if we went down there and had a wee look, we can make sure, and Mark would make sure of what's going on so that you can control the message that's going, because I think it's getting really convoluted and people don't know what it is.
I don't support going for a site visit because I think it will just be a complete waste of time at the moment because we don't know, as Emma said, what the issue essentially is. I think once we've got the advice, if they're saying, oh, it's too close to a resident or there's a gate needs to go there, then we can go and have a look at the site because we can apply what we're hearing from the advice to an actual site visit. That would be I think we all understand.
I'm going to go and have a look. Yeah, the other thing is I'm concerned that staff have already said they're looking for an alternative site. Well, that's a waste of resource for staff because that's not what these people want.
Exactly.
They just want to be able to fence that bit off and use that. If we can't do it, then forget it, right? So it's like you have to really see it to figure out how sensible it is. The other thing is, why don't we just go straight into the consultational engagement and see what the people think and then pick it up?
Oh, just do it.
Because there's only one unit that's closest to it that would be affected, and the dog, they shouldn't be affected because the dogs are already in the park.
How much is
still on that map? There's one that's 3.6 metres and one that's 7.7 metres.
But the dogs are already in the park now. So what is going to change that they would be affected by the dogs there? Because the dogs are already running in that park.
It's just because staff haven't had the chance they haven't fully delved it in terms of compliance issues. I mean, to my mind, it's only to my mind, you're attracting that activity to the area so that if a neighbour has an issue or a future neighbour has an issue, like all the current neighbours might be happy, but future neighbours, if they have an issue, if they may, council's deliberately done something to, but that's only my speculation. So it would be advisable to, it could include advice on a trial, the memo, certainly following up with staff. Just staff have got a little bit of work on that particular staff area.
Okay, all right. So how about if any members willing could meet a staff member down there, just to make sure that the message is correct?
Why can't we have someone come and talk to us and look at a picture on the screen? I really don't, I just think that extends things. I would rather have a staff member here that we can talk to.
Something like a good old site visit.
Bloody cold and takes time and stuff. But what I think we have to do is ask staff to stop looking at other places. I don't know where on earth that came from.
Yeah, we can go back to staff and say, stop looking at other places. If we're going to do it, it's going to be here.
Yeah. Come talk to us.
We want to get something moving as quickly as possible if we can, but we do want to see, because it says The team leader Parks Recreation Planning is making inquiries of other relevant staff to understand.
There you go, look, it's
if
just,
council were to receive a noise complaint from the neighbour inside the park.
Can they come and talk to us?
Yeah, we'll see what there's.
have they received any noise complaints about dogs in the parks to
No, but
date?
surely once you fence it off, well, it's what Mark's saying, there's a risk that it's going to attract more dogs than what are currently there.
Don't think so.
And they talk very loudly.
Work with staff and see what we can sort out.
Can't take an action here, but
Yeah.
But
we've got the emails. The emails.
said, yes, depending on what the neighbours think, then we would need to engage or consult. Why don't we do that first?
Because that.
And then staff would know.
Because we may as well put a fence up and do a trial.
Because we can't, we'd have to consult anyway.
Do we?
Yeah,
Let's
apparently.
find out what the process would be.
Yeah. Let's get the staff
That's
advice.
true. I'd like to know why we have to consult. Yeah, that would be helpful.
Find out some more information.
Thank you.
And we'll let it be known that we do want something to happen soon.
All I can say is.
Next meeting. Next meeting.
Well, that's a bit.
Right.
Yes, that's all.
Okay, Jake.
That's all from me. And it's all from him. Who said that? Not the 9 o'clock news or something?
No, it's Ronnie's.
Well, yeah.
Talking with residents down Ryan Street today, and they mentioned a bit of congestion down there and a bit of difficulty actually navigating out onto Ferry Road. And I think Bordersley Street may be the same. So given we're considering the Ferry Road pedestrian crossing slightly just outside of the area I'm talking about, I'm wondering if we could get a note to transport staff to see if there's a thatch crossing or something that could be useful to at least discuss, if not make a decision at when that report comes in August for Ferry Road.
You want to take that offline and follow up an email? Because we can't take an action from here, but if you email through to me, we will.
What's
actions? You can't do things on that.
Email me.
Actions. And I don't, you'll have a nosebleed.
And I site visit, we couldn't have arranged it in this session.
Why do we have that?
Absolutely.
So that we can share information.
I don't even like questions other people.
Tell you what I've got written on my run sheet if you like.
Yeah.
Sections for sharing news from community meetings or events attended, and council is to share council or committee decisions following on from community board recommendations.
We used to be able
that may affect community.
Yeah, we did.
And or areas.
Yeah, we did used to be able to.
That's another way to go.
It was great. It was a great forum for proactive ideas.
The question was, do we want to continue having this information shared as an agenda item? Is there any point?
Yeah.
I mean, the stuff that you've shared is.
You like it? It's helpful.
I don't like anyone else's but my own. I think everyone feels the same.
Anyone else have any?
Like Victoria's Dairy. I think it's fantastic.
Nice.
High level stuff. It's important for
Okay.
locals.
Nothing else in, right,
Go home and see this email.
the meeting? And we are going to move on in just a minute to our information.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yes, sorry, close the meeting with karakia. Una here, una here, una here, Te Taru Tapanui, Te Loasia, Te Mama, Te Nako, Te Nana, Te Wairoa, Ate Tata Tata, Puera, Elo, Pakawaya, Ake Tina, Yetina, Tina, Tai. Thank you everyone for coming along. And you'll couple of minutes, very quick, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I have seen it.
It's going on.
Good. Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah, I think every time I
Yeah.
pass it. Yeah, I think it looks great too.
Mm.
Yeah.
Right, welcome back. Again.
Just need another heater down this end.
Yeah, one sort of here and here.
Yeah.
I don't.
Bring a hottie.
How we just raise this and go home?
Yeah.
Yep, I don't have a heater.
Why don't you just send us an email?
Oh, that's fine. Yeah. No questions.
You're so cheeky.
Right. Yeah. Am I starting?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
that's something.
Right.
Yeah, taking that from you.
I never know which button to push, sorry. I'm here to talk to you today about the Lancaster Park development, the play space to be exact. But I thought I'll probably start off just with a quick update on, does this work?
Oh, maybe it's not. That's good for links.
Yes.
So we can.
I'll do it.
You can just click through if you want to.
I'll try to.
Fine, doesn't matter.
Don't trust Mark.
Yeah.
That's what we say here, isn't it, Mark?
Yeah, just give it another, yeah, perfect.
It is working now.
It is working now, perfect. We can just do that. So you know about the community center works that are happening at the moment. So we're 4 months into construction and still estimated completion in October. That's just.
October, what date? Give a specific date in October?
Weather dependent.
Well.
Oh, no. Oh, that'll be right. Beautiful.
Also, I think I would leave that up to Selena to give you an update on the exact timeline. So. The other area that we're looking into is the multi-sport zone. So that's just an image of what it potentially could look like. We're not really sure yet exactly. But that's going to happen in the corner of the reserve. And then there is also the fully enclosed 2-bay artificial turf cricket practice nets.
Wow.
And then the natural turf practice cricket block, which is in collaboration with the cricket club. So that's indicative location at this point. So we're still trying to figure out exactly what works best. That's been managed by Richard Gibbs. And unfortunately, he's not here today for an update, but we can come back to you with a bit more detail at a later point. What I would really like to talk to you about today is the new play space. So that location is right adjacent to the community center. And it's taken a bit of time to actually get here, but we needed to kind of know where the community center is landing and what spaces we've got available. So we spent a bit of time reviewing the consultation. So there's been a lot back in 2022. And also when we did the consultation for Cross Reserve, there were quite a few comments from the community saying, what's happening with Lancaster Park? We provided feedback, nothing's happening. So I'm really pleased that I can give you an update now. So what we've done is we've come up with a concept that kind of takes that feedback into account, takes a look at Lancaster Park and its really rich sporting history, and looking at what play opportunities we can present that cater for all groups. And what we really wanted to do is carry that vision and have a sporting theme that goes with the wider history. So in general, we looked at how we can best utilize the space. So it's in different zones. So the corner section, just because it's really prone to high winds and rather cold, we decided that would probably be better just to keep it as passive recreation. So we're actually going to be utilizing the space just below the community center, which also gives nice free visibility onto the play space from the field, and it's not hidden away. And then we'll split it up into a junior zone, a senior zone, and then probably at the bottom where that yellow bit is a bit more senior adult zone, something where also the teenagers might feel comfortable to just hang out. Just saying this is really a concept at this point. It's the vision of what we're trying to achieve, but there is likely going to be a few changes later on. What we definitely want to do is make sure that we align it also with the wider landscaping that's happening at the park, and make sure that we take into account what's happening around the community center to make sure it flows.
we have this first concept. I know there's a lot of detail on here, so if I may, I might just jump to the image instead to give you an idea.
So going back to that one, those green blobs, they're trees, aren't they?
The green blobs are trees, yes.
So why don't they run in a row to cut the easterly out? That would be good.
Because
otherwise you've made.
Yes.
Yeah, I know, but no, but just trim the bucks a wee bit. We'll put different.
Yeah, I'm working with Toby on figuring out where best to place the trees. So at this point, it's still really early on.
You could use that opportunity to create shelter because it's really exposed to the easterly.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you've made tunnels there.
Yeah. We can definitely look into that a bit more.
Yeah.
So I've got a lot of detail as well. So if there are any particular items you want me to deep dive into, we can do that. But I thought just for an initial conversation about what it's going to look like, I brought this one along. And what we've also done is we worked with a visitor experience team to get all these stories about Lancaster Park and see how we can best integrate that. So what the decision was with running with the sports theme and including some of those visitor experience elements. So it's not just a play space for kids, but also something that the adults will enjoy and actually can see some of that history come back to life in the park. So for example, we've got the running tracks where you can actually time yourself and kind of see whether you can run faster than Peter Snell or Maurice Chamberlain. We're hoping to have a bespoke structure which is sitting on that mound to the left, which will be shaped like rugby balls. And we're hoping that it will have a component that sits on the ground and is more for younger kids as well as all abilities, and then one that's possibly sitting up on the mounted section, just to give it a little bit more point of difference, let's put it that way. The mount that you see, that's something we're hoping to be able to achieve that needs a little bit more review of how we can make that happen, taking into account SIPTED and visibility. But what we really wanted to achieve with that is that we have, on the one hand, we have the play area, but on the other side, we can actually create some spectator seating for the sports fields as well, and maybe even using some of the old stadium seats and integrate that piece of history back into the park as well. And then, as you can see, the swings are shaped as hurdles. So we're hoping to pick up some of the sporting history in that. And then just below the community center, there is a junior play module of sorts. We haven't quite nailed that what that's exactly going to be, but that's more focused on the younger kids, and then picking up the elements of like having cricket bats as poles and just creating something that is a bit more unique. And then the visitor experience elements at the top right, right now it's just this big wall, but we also will have to bring it closer in, because the idea was that it'll have an element of a scoreboard. So parts of it will be imagery from the old scoreboard, but then there will be elements that the kids can actually use to challenge themselves, and then possibly a hoop on the side. And we're going to have one of the, sorry, I'm not familiar with the history as well, but the Penny Farthington bikes. So trying to create that on there as well, so kids can potentially even sit on one.
What about a giant potato? Because remember, Lancaster Park was planted out in potatoes and wool.
We did consider that. But I think
you're older than we thought, Paula. No, actually, but really, I was there when they opened the gates and the restored gates, and all the memorial boards along there are fascinating to read.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that till
today. Use the whites of potatoes as sort of a climbing wall.
Yeah.
You know, the little white
potato climbing wall. Yeah. Good idea.
Okay.
I can note it down. The reason why we have it.
Just note it though, eh?
Just The reason why we haven't is because we wanted a clear theme for the play space.
These are was stupid.
Initially, we tried to bring all these ideas in, but then it became quite confusing across the whole play space. So that's why we went with the main.
It's not necessarily beautifully fused together.
You need potatoes to be able to run.
We move on.
Yeah. So, but going from here, what I'm hoping to do in the next few months, I've done a quick rundown. Again, this depends on how things are flowing. Please don't nail me down on the exact dates. But what I would like to do is work closely with Tessa, who's here as well, with the engagement team, to give an update to those that have submitted in 2022 and actually let them know their voice has been heard and we're actually progressing this.
Good idea.
So to go back to them and just share this concept with them and see what the feedback is, just to see whether we're on the right track, and then make updates to the concept. So I would really appreciate if there's some feedback you'd like to share, like you just did. Thank you. If you could pass that on to us.
What could match? Dirt, chips and dirt.
Good question.
Yeah.
Thank you. It looks absolutely amazing. My issue is around that prevailing wind, that easterly.
Yeah.
I mean, this looks an amazing park that you'll be wanting to visit, but if it is cold as buggery, nobody's going to use the damn thing. So I'm really concerned about that.
Okay.
So how does that feature into this?
Right now, there's a lot of soil from the community center that needs to find a new place, and we are actually looking at mounting that a bit. So that, so that especially to kind of capture some of that wind, that we can actually create lower level mounts, like not really high ones, so you still have the visibility from the street, but at least use landscaping and planting to kind of break that wind coming in.
But do you need full visibility all the way along? I mean, really, and I know you're putting trees there, but could they be pittos, like shrubs that you can trim through a hedge? And that would be a better wind break, and then have breaks in them. I mean, this SIPTED thing goes a little bit far, I think, sometimes, where you can't have a sheltered park because you've got to be able to see into it. Someone needs to invent transparent trees.
But also, we've got cameras nowadays, so.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, SIPTED shouldn't be the same as it used to be because we've got cameras.
And then the
If we
other
start
side.
cameras in parks discussion right now, we might be here till tomorrow morning.
Yes, but then the other side of the trees is open for view.
Yeah.
It's only that one street side.
I agree with you. It probably doesn't have to be every single point along the length. But the way we've structured it at the moment, that would be the area where the youngest kids would be playing. So we might just have to look at possibly changing the order of where we have play elements and make it happen.
But then you want the younger ones closest to the.
So that's actually, that was my question. About, have you thought about the elderly being the furthest away from the toilet? And perhaps you could put, it would be very nice for our elderly to be a little bit closer to the toilet.
The young ones need to be.
And the young ones can run to the toilet.
But the elderly are with the young ones because they're supervising.
No, but there's equipment and there's three bits and there's.
So I would assume the elderlies would be with the younger kids that need more active monitoring, and they are closest to the toilet.
But haven't you got the three sections with the older residents? But
What about the age?
No, that's teenagers.
So we're more talking.
We're not.
I was talking about aged people.
I don't think this playground is designed for aged people.
I think we organised it. I thought we did all our playgrounds for all ages now.
We do our playgrounds for all ages, and that's why, especially with this one, we wanted the visitor experience elements in there as well, so that there is something there for everyone. But right now we're looking at zoning it a bit, so that, and that's probably more the senior age group children and the adult age children. They would be at the bottom part. I would envision the elderly to be closer to where the young kids are playing and possibly sitting along that seating to watch the schools being up there.
So that you have considered them going to the toilet?
Yes.
Okay, I'm fine.
I'm not saying toilet. And do we have any disability equipment for disabled people?
We will.
We will.
So as I say, this is a concept just to get a general idea, a general understanding of what the layout could be. And then we're actually gonna get a designer involved that will help us work through that and do a bit more fine tuning and working out what we're gonna do. We also want to work with play equipment suppliers. So we'll do a tender to get someone in place to do design and build of some of that equipment, just to make it really unique for Lancaster Park.
Great. Thank you very much for that update. It's exciting to see that concept plan.
Can I just clarify, you are happy with us going back to submitters and sharing this?
Yeah,
Yes, thank you.
very happy to say.
Submitters plus.
The best choice.
Yes, submitters plus. Yeah.
So what's
Great.
plus going out?
Plus would be the.
When you sit around arguing.
How
about
far do you go
the
out?
Community centre.
How many streets do you go over?
How much money is that playground going to cost them compared to the community?
Sorry,
It's a community centre,
for a
not a
leader drop, we
drop-in,
can just go to the residents that are neighbouring the park, but we
Oh,
will
you
do
can
things
speak
like
to it,
social
feedback.
media, we'll go through the local residents association.
Yeah.
The Disabled Persons Assembly, for example, for those with disabilities.
Mm.
So the leader drop is a channel that is just for those immediate neighbours who might be worried about things like noise, visual intrusion, that sort of thing. Trying to reach the target audience is something we do through other channels, schools, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Thank you.
So just the easterly. Solve it. And the adults using the toilets. Listen, that area seems very exposed. Yeah. You know, and so I think we do need to consider that really carefully.
Yep.
And there must be a way we can balance it with shelter.
Cool.
Thank you. Thank you. Right, Grasmere Infrastructure Project.
Thank you.
Christine,
For waiting.
thank you for waiting so long.
Sounds interesting. We've kind of bad ours is more interesting. We can follow after following Barbara. You feel a bit much.
As long as you've incorporated some potatoes.
Really talking about that. We've got some ideas.
Got onions on there.
Yeah, former onion patches. So we just wanted to give that. Do I just ask you to move slides?
It should work.
Overall.
Yes.
Yeah, so we just really wanted to come in and give a bit of an update on what's happening with Grasmere development. There's obviously been some projects out there that have been advancing. I think most of them don't really, basically kind of do a link main upgrade and just kind of get on with it. But we also thought it would be important to come back to the board and just kind of let you know what's happening in terms of the Grasmere development in general. So Tim Muir is with me. He's the project manager. He's actually delivering 3 of the projects that are underway currently. And he'll give you a little bit more information about that. He'll be the more interesting part. I'll just kind of give you a bit of an overview. And I guess our understanding is that there's probably already a pretty good understanding with this board in terms of the East Papanui Outline Development Plan, the enabling infrastructure projects, and the Infrastructure Acceleration Fund. Like I said, not the most exciting part. And then there's a few projects that kind of basically the funds have kind of developed these projects that are being delivered in partnership and with funding support from central government. So I'll just put up the East Papanui Outline Development Plan. I just keep using it because it is actually just a really important reference for us.
Where's Cranford Street? On the right, is it?
Yeah, along the kind of where the T is.
Oh, that's Cranford.
Yeah,
right.
So is that black dotted line where the road is going to go from Grasmere to Cranford?
No.
What is that?
I'll show you the next ones. It probably gives you a little bit better context. Is this point? I'm just thinking. So this is the new motorway. And then the collector road, as identified in the ODP, is positioned there. So that's the collector road just through here.
Yeah, that's the one I was referring to.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I thought you meant this one over here.
No, that one. So can I jump straight into a question on that? Or do you want me to wait? Oh, wait.
Maybe we'll let you come through first and then wait for questions.
Yeah, no problem. So I mean,
thank you.
Yeah, so and I'll just kind of walk you through a little bit. So what's been happening? So obviously council has been working in partnership. There's Grasmere Developments has been and council received funding support for delivering some projects. And so we've got a number of projects that are currently underway that Tim's just finishing off. So one, and I actually labeled them incorrectly in the report. I swapped by accident the names of them because they're so similar. The Maze Water Supply Main, the description in the report, apologies, is for the link. But the main work is basically done. There's just a final connection that needs to happen.
Yeah, they weren't able to shut down the water pump station at the time, so they delayed that until now, and they'll be finishing their project off over the next month.
So these projects, so there's 8 projects that have come into this development, and it was all about kind of advancing and supporting housing. So council is working with developer in how we can do that, and there's projects that they're all funded through the LTP. So really, we've just got staff delivering them, and these are the ones that are underway at the moment. So the water supply main, as Tim mentioned, is about completed. EIP3, Tim will talk a little bit more about, is the Maze water supply link. And that's basically got a contractor on board, who'll be starting in a couple of weeks. And that work will be done, all things going well, by the end of the year. And essentially, this is going to help enable future housing in this area. The other key one is what we call EIP6, so it's enabling infrastructure project. So we get used to our acronyms and throw them at other people, but that's what they're referred to in the agreement, and that's a wastewater storage tank, and essentially that will kind of stop wastewater from flowing into the creek. And the collector road is mentioned, so this is one, it's still pretty early days. We're actually just looking at some different alignments for that. I heard some conversations earlier about, traffic movements in there, so there's definitely some modeling. We've just been meeting with transport in the last week or so, just to kind of start kicking this one off. We've got time on this one as well. And again, we'll be working with the developers and how that works. So the funding really for the collector road is about taking it over and above kind of a local collector to kind of adding a little bit more lights. I'm probably getting my terms wrong. It's basically, I'm not a transport person, but it kind of ups the level of that road to provide a bit more service. And that's what the funding from central government is for. So really, it's funding that helps us deliver it. It escalates these projects in terms of getting them funded to help support housing. So to date, this has all been through agreements with Kangaora and Infrastructure Acceleration Fund. So that's now being shifted. From the 1st of July, we've got a new agency from central government. So we're just kind of in the transfer of that. But really, we're already delivering on those projects. So the assumption is we just keep moving. The new agency is called NIF. So we've just been finding out about that, which stands for, I wrote it down.
You mentioned Kangaora.
Hang on.
NIF?
NIF is the National Infrastructure Funding and Financing Agency. So that's the new central government agency. Infrastructure Acceleration Fund, or was sort of a brand, was connected to Kangaroa and the delivery, which was more just about the housing, because there'd be housing outcomes through this that would support housing.
I see.
There's a connection to it. Yes, there's a certain degree of.
But they gave us big money, didn't they?
Yes. Yeah.
But the rest of that is funded from DCs, isn't it? That we've stumping up the DCs and we'll get them back.
Exactly. Council does everything to boundary as per usual, but this just really helps accelerate, I suppose, getting development happening in this area. So I'm not an expert on any of the developments that are happening in that area. I'm just kind of helping getting the projects going and coordinating with central government. But we are aware that there's been the consent was just granted from ECAN for the first package housing. So it's all sounding, it's all going on quite nice.
How disruptive is that work along there with residents that are on that boundary?
I will hand that over to Tim to talk about the projects. I think that was part of what we wanted to do, was kind of talk to you about.
What difference does it make though?
Oh, we're just going to hold
everywhere.
Guys. We'll hold questions until the end. They may cover it. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So the water supply main is only going to be about 50 to 100 meters off the street, and then some work on the pump station site. As I think there's about 2 to 3 weeks worth of work, but only about sweet. Yeah. Moving on to EIP3, which is renewal of a new water main down there. It will result in the closure of the cycleway for the month of July, while that water main is installed. We've engaged Isaac Construction, who are they've started doing some potholing. You might have seen some of their potholing just to confirm where existing services are down on Rutland Street. So there's they currently have a traffic management plan that's being processed by council. They've engaged with Papara Street School and with some others, and they're looking at doing some coffee cart engagements and the like to discuss and ensure that commuters are aware of what's been planned for that.
And has that created a start work notice? Is it at the threshold that it's created an SWN or not?
I've held off doing a start work notice until we've got a traffic management plan, so we literally know that we have an
Yes,
approved.
sorry,
method
that's what I meant,
of
absolutely.
Yeah, so the traffic management has been submitted, along with some supporting information which showing that we've that there's been engagement with obviously this local school and the like. So
great, thank you.
So where is the school on here? I'm just in.
School is.
Just right there.
Okay, rightio.
Because some of it will be school holidays.
Yeah, because big.
Yeah, that's what we're targeting, and they're looking at using 2 crews, which are basically starting either side of the bridge there and working away in both directions.
Is it like down the middle of the road?
It'll be on the side of the cycleway, but because of the
Snow road.
That's the cycleway down there.
it's
Falling road. Snow road.
The road stops.
So here is a cycleway.
Cycleway.
I know that, I ride it all the time, but there's the road. But so is it going to be digging up the sideway? Oh.
And then obviously there's a wastewater storage facility that we'll look at in a bit more detail further on. So the purpose of the wastewater storage is when it rains to try and alleviate some of the pressure on the local network.
I mean, this is the big challenge in here because that, as you know, is a huge swamp. I actually voted against this. I did that many times.
So I suppose just for information, because of the location of the cycleway and the lack of surrounding roads, the cycleway diversion will be quite lengthy. But you know, the contractor is looking to mitigate that by throwing additional resource at it and trying to improve it as quickly as
Yeah. Seriously, if you will you be able to turn off and go through what reserved to Cranford?
Where possible,
Turn off
once we're past that. So if you're talking about coming up Rutland and heading off down there,
it'd be much quicker.
They're going to open that as quickly as they possibly can.
Right.
But noting that there will be disruption for 4 to 5 weeks.
Yeah. We're going to Northland.
Will we get something that we can put on our socials and stuff to promote this detail?
So there's been a reasonable amount of discussion internally about making sure that it's well.
Awesome, great, thank you.
And obviously the Grasmere wastewater storage facility being located with the funding requirements, we need to be in a position to start construction of that early next year. It's around about an 18 window for the delivery of that project as well. So I don't know how much has been portrayed to the board previously, but this is as you cross the bridge, there's a pipe outlet into the stream, and during wet weather events that will discharge wastewater due to the lack of the capacity of the system. So the intention is with this new storage facility will effectively reduce the amount of times that overflow occurs from twice a year down to at least a month every 2 years.
Oh, wow. That'd be good. Sorry, how many new houses?
500 consented.
500. This could be more than that at the end of
Yeah.
Agreements for 1,400, so the housing outcomes for this area as part of the full agreement with NIF now is 1,400 in the entire Cranford.
500 so far.
Yeah, first package is.
Is that for you?
Do we know? Yeah, area 4, which is shown in yellow at the bottom.
Yeah. So area 4 is and the bit of it in the middle, and that's the bit that's being developed now.
Yeah, so sorry, there's kind of like, can you wiggle it around there? And then the bit that each place, area 4 is there, yeah.
That's the existing housing.
But is it not all the yellow?
Does it go up there or not?
There's some of it in that area.
And the other side too.
Well, there's that's area. And
it's not the area to the north, because that's where in terms of the collector road location and design, a lot more work has to happen in terms of configuring that and working with the developers.
Okay, well, let's get through to the collector road. Let's talk about that soon.
Okay, and so I suppose long term the facility and will be the there's about 3,500 square metre site that we've got here, and the facility will be able to store about 3,400 cubic metres of wastewater. We've just done a very early mock-up of what that would look like. So the intention would be that there'll be a fence and that there would be planted to shelter there. But it would look like reservoir.
Call me stupid, but the wastewater, I mean, the wastewater comes, it's grey water. We're talking grey water when we have
We're talking
Sewage. So we're talking toilets and things like that.
Yes, again, toilets.
Okay.
Right, is that the end of it?
Yeah, that's the end of it. So
Okay. Right, we'll move to questions then. Victoria was first.
Thanks. There were conditions attached to a number of the consents. Do you know, and it was particularly in relation to some trials that they were having to do. Has there been any progress made in relation to those trials?
The surcharge trials?
Yeah, and does that impact anything that you're doing?
We've just been working with the developer on them, so they will be starting the surcharge trials as part of the works. And they've been communicating directly because your works.
yeah, so
I didn't think they could do them in winter. I think they had to
That's part of the issue is the timing. But that's all been lined up with the consents now as well.
okay.
yeah, so the design of this facility it's been done in a manner that doesn't need that surcharging to go ahead.
Okay, that was the piece. So I was trying to find the connectivity between that. The other key thing for me is, can you pull up that one with the collector road? My understanding is that there was some delay around the collector road because council were negotiating with the purchase of a piece of land to get that road in.
Yep.
Have we confirmed that purchase of the land yet? Still ongoing?
Is it one owner, isn't it?
So that's really in terms of, the commercial sensitivity. There's just some discussion about that, where that goes. Yeah, and also just making sure it's in the right location. So there's modeling going on.
It's still a bit more work done it.
We'll come back and we know some more.
And how much are we looking at purchasing? How wide?
That's part of it as well with the design with the corridor. So I don't have that in front of me, but the transport engineers have been looking on that. So.
Are you done, Vic?
Yeah, thank you.
And why a collector road, not a local?
I think the idea is just the volumes, but that's again where the modeling needs to come in just to confirm what's required.
But our classification of roads is not on numbers, it's on function.
So all of that's
the function of that road.
Yes, all of that's part of the transport analysis that's happening. That will be part of the development analysis. Again, I can come back to you with more information on that. Because it's not my.
I mean, where is it collecting road traffic from? Where is it taking it to? And I personally think the collector road status needs to be write some information about it.
Simon, your question?
Yeah, just a couple of quick ones. So on that EIP3, the cycleway closure, just noting, I'm sure you're aware of that. It's not it's a cycleway, it's also a shared path. A lot of pedestrians use it as well. Just hoping that's taken into consideration, especially under public communication. You might confuse some people if you speak only about cycleway there. The Grasmere Estates fast track application, I'm wondering if you're familiar with that?
Yeah, we're aware that they applied for it. Beyond that, that's really their.
So my understanding is that that application covers an area that already had resource consent. I'm a little bit confused about what the purpose is of the fast track application, what it's seeking to achieve that's not already been achieved.
Yeah, I can't really speak to their kind of agreements with central government on the fast tracking, but if you can ask some.
So, good one. Thank you.
I just wanted to check that Papanui High School is also included in the people that you're talking to about the shared path closure, because a lot of students.
Okay, I'll be on board.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, actually including Marion St. Bede's in that too, because they all go up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a busy.
Does that get covered in the transport impact? During the transport plan?
And just one more question from me. The camping ground is included within your red boundary. Is that
it is
developed as part of this?
Has been sold, I think.
Is it? There wasn't it for sale just recently?
Is that just there on the left, top left?
It's all those trees and buildings you see on the, at the very top there.
Yeah, there's a number of areas where there's not a plan for development yet. What this is trying to do is help solve some of the infrastructure issues.
Maybe they don't own their land.
It's within the ODP area, it always has been.
They've invested a huge amount of money in that.
I
place,
know.
and they don't own the land. Because we lived there for.
We can still lease property and invest in it though, isn't it? What's the other explanation?
I don't know, I hadn't even picked that up. Maybe they just want it. Can we confirm that? I mean, I mean, it looks like if you've marked it there, then it must be a part of this.
It's just, I think we've just sort of showing the boundary of the ODP just for reference.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
obviously there's a
okay.
lot of independent developers that are part of ownership. We're just highlighting the projects that council is involved in delivering.
Doesn't mean that hasn't been built on that site. But does that mean that if there aren't, it doesn't necessarily mean that houses are going to be built on that site, but does that mean that that site is a part of this land that could be developed into housing? No.
It's just, this is just the boundary for the ODP. I just wanted to kind of reference between the two.
Okay.
That's why I retained the boundary. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing.
Yeah.
It was just kind of a good reference point for me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, it was just to really show that, because there's obviously a lot of stormwater improvement areas as well that are part of this work that we know our stormwater engineers.
Yeah,
So the stormwater management area, will that be ponds, or more like a wetland? Could be quite nice then.
Great, thank you very much for that update.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay.
There's a long.
Good to hear everything about those other things.
Books for years now.
Yeah, and it's good. I mean, the nice thing about the funding is it doesn't allow us.
Yes.
I mean, particularly when Tim shows images of like wastewater
Yeah,
going into.
Thanks very
like,
much.
Yeah.
You know, we need to fix these things, so that's really help, and that's what we're trying to prioritize.
Yeah.
Well, you're about to cycle away, don't you? Thank you.
But still good on this list side.
Yeah, so that was a good idea.
And the school holidays too. Don't need it.